All right, rule 0. I forget what number this is. I have lost track of how many we have done. So this is actually, I think, my 5th rule 0. Anyways, welcome everybody. I have with me today Rich Cooper. I've got Ryan Stone and I've got Troy Francis. Rich is only with us for the first hour. I'm going to bring Jack Napier on later on after he has exited. So, gentlemen, how are you doing? What's going on with you?
All good, man. Had a good week. Yep. Great to see your stream with Andrew Tate yesterday. Hopefully we'll get onto that maybe a little bit in a minute. But
yeah, I was I was telling you guys before that was unintentionally a very good episode. There's certain guys that I'll do like an interview with or I'll talk to, and it's like I automatically click with them. Like I did that with Pat Campbell and of course you guys as well. But like Tate's one of those guys that I automatically click with, and what I think is interesting about all of that is he and I have this understanding where it's like I've written a book about it, but he's like living it out, right? He's reading my book, but he doesn't need to read my book to know what's already in the book because he's already been kind of, I guess, acculturated and raised in that way to be like what I would call a natural. So it's interesting to talk to him. Like Rich was just saying a minute ago that like the idea of the Alpha Buddha from my first book is it's no longer Corey Worthington because Corey has sort of jumped the shark as
he's cucked out now.
Yeah, he's cucked out now. But I would say Tate is certainly a natural with respect to being alpha.
The great thing about Tate is he's a natural, but he can also articulate it. And the problem that you have with most naturals is that they're naturals and they have great success with girls in the sexual marketplace, but they can't explain it. They can't articulate it. And because Tate is highly intelligent, you get both with him. He can explain it and he can teach it, which is really cool.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen that, I'm looking in the chat right now. If you guys haven't seen that, go check it out. It's one of my more widely viewed, I guess, videos right now. It's really jumped, and I'm glad to say. Anyways, it was really good material. Have a look at that if you haven't already. It's on my channel here. But I wanted to sort of lead off with my interview with Tate, or my talk with Tate yesterday, because a lot of what he discussed, particularly towards the end of that talk, was about sort of long-term, like, what do you do about monogamy? What do you do about polygamy? In his case, definitely polygamy. Like Ryan actually came up with this topic for today. And I really want to kind of dig into this a little bit more because I think right now we don't really explore options like, we talk about how, rule 0 is actionable information. Well, like, to get that information, we kind of have to have this talk. We have to have these, suss all this kind of stuff out. So at the end of my talk with Tate yesterday, I asked him, I said, are you going to get married? And he's like, no, I'm not. He doesn't want to get married, like not in the traditional sense. And I said, well, are you going to have kids? And he said, well, I definitely want children. And this is something that I hear from a lot of guys who are quote unquote players, right? Or they're guys who are very good at the game. If you look at a lot of the old school pickup artists, they look at like Mystery, or you look at like some of the guys from RSD. These guys have made a living pretty much up until about 2014, 2015 on teaching guys how to get laid, teaching guys how to interact with women, and then also in a sort of inadvertently, I guess, teaching them some kind of like social intelligence to actually interrelate with people who, they want to have sex with, or they want to, eventually start a family with. Because what is the ultimate end of all this is having kids, start, family formation. So what is the red pill without like family formation? What is the red pill without, I always say, men and women are better together than they are apart. And so I think that a lot of bringing men and women together is really, I think, rooted in women sort of I guess sort of losing the hubris right now, losing the entitlement. Bringing women to the table is probably the toughest part. But like once you get people together, what's the plan? Like what happens after that? And Ryan, you were saying something to the effect that like there's only really two ways to go about this, right? There's the old social contract. There's the tradcon way of doing things, which is really kind of like I think regressivism. Like we want to go
100%.
back to what was before because we thought that was the ideal. And then you have the opposite side, which is sort of like the Jeff Miller, everybody's going to be poly and we're all just going to live together like, egalitarian bonobos in the jungle, and everybody's, banging everybody else, and we're all going to, feel good about it. And this is the way for you. Like I had a guy.
Funny, by the way, they have to go to like extremes. Like there's clearly no giant middle ground to pursue there. It always has to be, I'm going to screw 5 of my neighbors' wives, or I'm gonna settle down and do a Norman Rockwell. I just don't get it. They're very smart people. They do such stupid things.
Yeah. So why don't you sort of open us up here and let me know what your thoughts were for this topic here.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about it, and I'm all up for us to have a good Pat Stedman dunk scenario. He says such dumb shit. It's very easy to do. Mm-hmm. And I've been thinking about it, and I'm like, all this time we always tell him like, look, you think you can't stand Rollo's work or my work or Troy's work. Give us something better. And I thought, why not hold us to that same task, put up some use cases? Because I don't know about you guys, but in my feeds, it's always about, well, what should I do? And I'm like, I'm not here to tell you what you should do. I'm here to tell you how to do what it is you want to do. But I'm like, well, what could be the harm? And just some use cases. Because we got a pretty diverse set of relationships here. We got Troy, older bachelor type, in a relationship, earlier state, so he's showing that there's no biological clock for man. Like whatever, I can be, I don't know, how old are you, Troy? Can I 43, 42?
45, man, I'm afraid.
45. Wow. Here's the thing, 45. Girlfriend, love and life. No biological clock. Yeah. There's me. It's kind of like a Tate thing there. I'm never getting married, but in a monogamous relationship, and it's perfectly fine. Rich has done the divorce thing, and now he's living his life happily there with, he's dating girls, but from what I understand, Rich, you said there's most likely not going to be another girl living in your house or getting a ring from you, and that's fine too. So he went that way. Married,
I've actually gotten to the point where I'm doing a non-cohab LTR.
Yeah. So that's his thing there. And then there's you on your side, which is, for as much hate as you get from the trads, you sure are living the dream.
Yeah. I tell you, the thing that's ironic about all of this is like everybody who's been throwing rocks at me for the last like 5.5 months and still are, it's like for everything I've written, it's like, and they want to be patriarchs and they want to, go back to this old golden era of, men are men and women are women. And we all need to, get along together in the old school way of doing things. It's like, I live that out probably better than 90% of the guys. Well, actually, maybe 100% of the guys that are throwing rocks at me. And I'm like, well, yeah, show me what is it that you think that I'm doing wrong here?
Well, I thought there's four good use cases right here on what you can do. We're not saying be like me, it works for me, but it's just showing you that the options are out there, that you don't have to have 3 boyfriends and 1 girlfriend living in the same house, and you don't have to marry a girl, know you're going to get divorced, raped, and be okay with that. Like there's alternative options. So I thought,
one interesting thing that Tate said actually on your show was that he's been in a relationship with one of his girls for 8 years. So that's actually longer than, I think, certainly longer than someone like Pat's been married, and probably longer than a lot of the, any marriages that these dudes have got. So there are other models that can work.
Yeah. Right, and that's the thing too. So everybody here has experience. We're not talking about the things we figured out 6 months ago. We're generally talking about stuff that, 5 years ago I came to these conclusions, and here's the aftermath of it, which I actually love. And I think that's why I gel so much with you guys, because you're great for that. A lot of these traddy, I'm going to just call them Stedmanites because I can't think of a better word, or the Bruno types. They literally figured something out, and then 3 days later, they're like, guys, I got the perfect plan to switch your life up. Buy my course. I'm like, dude, give it a minute. Let it percolate for a bit before you start trying to sell it.
Right. Well, there's the grift angle to all of this, of course, because people want that. I mean, I have had guys that I know in real life who will say, how do I get what you have? I want to get to a state where I'm in a relationship like you have with Mrs. Tomasi, right? And I have always been very hesitant to give like some kind of plan or some kind of prescription to get to the state where I am with my wife right now, because I'm me, she's her, and that, we work very well together. Obviously, I don't consider her my soulmate or anything, but we're certainly a good fit. Okay, we have been together for 23 years. We have a 21-year-old daughter. We did. What's interesting is I when I met my wife and we started dating, and then we got married, and then we had a kid like about 2 years after that. I'm an anomaly today. I'm like a rare case because most guys don't do it the way that I did. Like they'll find a girlfriend, they'll get her knocked up, and they'll go, "Oh shit, I better do the right thing," right? And then you've got like the pre, pregnancy pictures, right? And your wedding pictures are your pregnancy pictures, those kind of things. And so I see that, or else it's like guys will come up to me, or they'll show, the other scenario in that is, of course, guys who don't have the kind of sexual access that they would probably like, which is why they seek out the red pill. But these are the guys who will get married or get into, these are Rich Cooper's boys. Yeah. These are Rich Cooper's guys for his show, before the train wreck. It's always the guys who are saying, I'm in a relationship with a single mom. And I'm 23 and she's 31.
What's hilarious, by the way? You remember your men is raised as defective women thing?
Uh-huh.
You're getting, and the extreme example is the virgin guys with the Chad chick marrying him as she hits her 30s.
yeah. But Rich can speak to that, because I think if we're going to talk about alternatives, we have to see what's going on right now. What are most guys? And by most guys, I mean most beta men. What are they opting for right now? What is it that they feel that they're like duty bound or honor bound to? Because I've written at least 3 different posts, maybe 4 now, just this year about how paternity is changing. And it's changing because beta males think of their relationship in terms of scarcity. First of all, I talked about this with Tate yesterday, but also they feel like honor bound, or they feel like better about themselves because they're playing Captain Save-A-Ho, right? They are picking up these, even in the churches are saying, man up and marry these sluts, man up and marry these single mommies.
Yeah, they'll be forever grateful to you.
And exactly. It's what God wants you to do. And then they're calling Rich, 6 months later to get permission from him to break up or to cheat on a wife. Or
that's why you hate talking about this stuff, Rich.
Well,
I know.
Well, that's why the show got cut back to every other week, because we were spending too much time doing Q&A, taking the same questions of guys complicating their lives and then trying to justify why they do. Yeah, it's all like it's after the train wreck stuff, like a lot of the time. So we figure, 1, we're going to spend more time talking before we take calls, and 2, we're going to do the show every other week now, so that we don't burn out from the same BS, right? Because both Sean and I were getting a little tired of it. So there's a lot of guys that really like to complicate their lives and to justify why they do it. Your broadcast yesterday again with Tate was great. One of the things that he noticed that came up a lot was a lot of people say, hey, how do I solve this problem? He's like, okay, well, here's this solution, or here's this solution, and you can pick one of them. But because they don't like them, they'll go and just make up an excuse. Well, I don't like either one of those, so how do I stay where I am at and have a girl marry me in the state of Tennessee or whatever, some shit like that? And it's like, it's not like there's no foolproof way. Like that's the reason why he left and fucked off and went over to Romania, right? A lot of people don't want to take the steps necessary to protect themselves or to execute on a better plan going forward. They just don't want to do the work, right? It's too hard.
So there has to be at least a willingness to want to work.
A strong willingness, because men are up against a lot of BS today, and a lot of guys still have that fairy-esque, Disney-esque like narrative that like the red pill deniers have now today, that are all going in the other direction. We know who they are. We don't need to talk about them, but they're selling some narrative like just buy her flowers or just take her out dancing, or there's like entire beta male breeding grounds on Facebook groups, and I've shared some of them with you guys privately in the last couple of weeks. But it's just like They don't get it. Like, no amount of studying the 5 love languages is going to solve the fact that your wife is not banging you.
Yeah.
Well, that one guy you showed me, he didn't even want that. He just wanted his wife to hug him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And that's like, I know. And that, I know we laugh at it, but man, I mean, when you're in it, man, if these guys are in it, that's, God damn it, man. It's especially when it comes to Kino and affection and stuff like that. I really feel bad for some of these guys because that's like a human need. Like babies don't, they'll be the first ones to tell you this too. Like babies don't thrive unless like the nurses like pick them up and hug them or love them or something like that. And old people die sooner if they don't have like people come in and give them hugs and kisses and everything. And I'm like, yeah, but in between there, you're on your own, mother. Yeah. It's hard, man. It's hard to talk to these guys because it's like you feel for them, but you gotta know that you actually, if we're going to discuss these things, if we're going to say, okay, here's a plan, like here's my life as a model, here's Ryan's life as a model, here's Tate's life as a model, whatever. You have to know that you have to be the guy that is actually putting it into effect, because we can give you all the actionable information in the world, but you actually have to make it actionable. You actually have to do it. You have to go out there and find some way to make that work. Now, before we get started here, like I think I'm glad we have all 4 of us here because you're right, Ryan. We all have sort of different relationship, I guess, strategies maybe. In our lives. I mean, their lifestyle choices, right? I mean, I chose the lifestyle that I am in right now. I could be in a different one, but this is the one I've chosen. This is the one I'm sticking with. And I feel like I've got some rewards from it, right? I feel like I'm getting something back from this. It's not like a one-sided thing. My wife does have sex with me. I've got a great kid. I'm living actually the TradCon dream right now.
100%.
But that's not to say that I'm the only way. And that's one of the reasons why I have always been hesitant to say, here's a plan. Here's how you can get to where I am. I never use my marriage as a blueprint for other people's like lives, because I don't live in the country you live in. I'm not married to the woman that you are in a relationship with. I'm me, you're you. And so when I say, or when I talk about how I don't game my wife, or how I'm my reflexive understanding of red pill or game or whatever is just like part of my personality right now, that's because of me. That's because I'm the one that made that happen. But that doesn't mean like Ryan's situation is better or worse off than what I'm doing right now. Everybody says, I get tons of MGTOWs that will say like, well, that she could leave you at any time, man, right? That she could just take you to the cleaner anytime. Yeah, dude, I understand that.
Yeah, you can get in a car accident tomorrow and die too, right?
Yeah, I'm still making it work.
There's risk involved with being a man.
Yeah, I'm still making it work. And I think Tate had something to say about that yesterday as well. He says, these guys just give up. Right. It's like you can do that. You can just go and give up. But there's a lot of guys who don't want to give up, and they want to figure out how to go forward in a relationship, because sooner or later guys want to do it. Right. I mean, even Roosh right now is still looking for, Mrs. Right. He's looking for Mrs. Roosh right now in his new frame. Right. But like, you'll get guys who are like these consummate players. And this is what I call the script. Okay, it's those guys who were the consummate players. It's like the Tucker Max story, right? They had the Playboy lifestyle, or at least that's what they built their brand on. They had this lifestyle that was completely counter to what they're living right now with a wife and a kid, and they're mowing the lawn and they're doing things that they've been domesticated basically, and now they have to sort of pivot on the changes that have happened in their lives, and they have to find some way to justify why they're in the position that they're in. But at some stage, people want to have at least some kind of sense of a relationship, whether it's Tate with, his girlfriend of 8 years, and then he's got, his concubines, or it's me in one stable relationship with one woman for 23 years, and I've got one kid. Or it's Brian, like maybe you should start off here. Like, I mean, what is your situation like? I mean, is this something that you can say other dudes can do?
Yeah, well, in Canada, pretty easy. It's just common law marriage. If you cohabitate, the government will consider you to be married as far as the legal status goes.
You don't have any kids though, so like, what's your plan with kids at all? Like, is that something that you've planned out? living in Canada? Because I mean, as far as the government's concerned right now, as far as the state's concerned, in Toronto, you guys are married, so there's a division of assets, right?
Yeah, but for the most part, as long as you handle certain legal thresholds of things you have to be taken care of, they'll rubber stamp whatever plan we put in place, and we'll need arbitrators, not lawyers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very simple when you don't have kids. But what about the kids question though? Like,
well, that's one of the things there. Like, what part of it you want to address? Because I don't know. I'm not really the most experienced guy, and I try not to speculate.
What, do you want to have them or no?
Oh, that's a personal question. I don't know how to answer that one.
Well, TikTok, right? Both for you and Mrs. Stone. Right. I mean, it's an interesting piece of dialogue. Like, I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
Ryan, how old are you right now, Ryan?
Right now, I'm 39.
39. Okay.
And how old is Mrs. Stone?
She is 33.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I can't believe I had to think about that one.
Well, I mean, she's got some runway still, right? Like, she's got lots of well, not lots, but I mean, she's got some good.
Well, I guess I'll put it this way: if it happens, if we go that route, I just accept the fact that push comes to shove, most likely, at best, I would get a visitation, but not have custody. She could be a crackhead and I could be a Christian, and it wouldn't matter. Mm-hmm. I've just come to accept that there's some things in life that you're not going to have control over, and so those lay where those lay.
It's a
lot of the older guys
from
the married red pill, when they talk about that, and the guys living their lives right now accept that and realize that most of your life with your children is going to be with them as adults.
Yeah.
So if you're really that good of an influence on them, chances are you'll have a chance to make things up. So you're probably going to miss that tucking them in at night when they're 6 years old and kissing them on the forehead. I know I don't want to hit any triggers on you here, because I don't know how much like childhood stuff you've had with your kid that you kind of miss having, but I just accept that stuff will probably go away.
Right? I still get to see her half the time, and that's fine, because it's kind of like a little unwritten secret of divorce is if you do have shared custody, then you're a parent half the time. The other half the time, you can do whatever the hell you want. Yeah. You got flexibility in your schedule, so you're not responsible to tuck in and do bedtime stories.
But and here's the thing: so you're looking at it, you want to raise a good kid. You don't want to be a good dad. And I think there's a difference there. I'm not sure if you understand it.
No, it's both. No, it's definitely both. I mean, like you want to, like your results will speak for who you are, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm sure Rolo knows as having an adult daughter, right? But who she is a result of Mr. and Mrs. Tomasi doing what they did with her growing up, and I'm sure Rolo feels an amount of pride in that, as does.
But that's my point. Like the goal is the healthy adult child. It's not I get to kiss her on the head every night. I get to leave a legacy. You notice how there's the difference there? It's
but there's like day by day work. It's the same thing with like building a good, strong, masculine, physique. It's every day you get up and you commit yourself to going to the gym and picking up shit or going to the dojo, whatever it is that you're doing, eating proper food, taking care of your body. It's like, I look like the way that I do today at 46 simply because I've done the work my entire life, right? So it's like parenting is a daily thing. Every time you're with the kid, there's a little bit of you that rubs off on them, and they're watching what you're doing, right? Like they're not so much paying attention to what you tell them to do. But I mean, they're definitely watching what you're doing, right?
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but like my parents split up when I was, I think, 8 or 9 years old.
Five. Gotcha.
Oh yeah. Okay. So you win. I don't know if you guys come from like divorced parents, but I did.
I should have though. I mean, like my parents should have probably got divorced when I was young, because they were always fighting when I was a kid.
And I always use that as sort of my, it's not like I think, oh, well, I want to do a better job than my dad. I want to do a better job than my mom. That,
it's got nothing to do with that.
It doesn't have anything. I never thought about that. But then I also, some people do. Some people do. But like,
those people scare me because
it's not about the kid.
It's like they overcompensate, right?
Yeah. Well, but I do realize that I am part of who I am, or part of what I've become, is a result of them splitting up, is a result of the intersexual decisions that my mom and my dad made back in the 50s or 60s, whatever it was. And that's, I really want, and Rich, I might want to do the show with you. I really want to do a show about how understanding or how being red pill aware affects your family. like your understanding of who your dad was and who your mom was. I think that's an area that has gone unexplored for a long time, and I really want to do that. But like,
bring me on for that.
I don't know about Rich. I guess Rich, your parents are still alive. Troy, did your parents break up when they were?
Yeah, they did. They divorced when I was 7, actually, which is so yeah, similar. Yeah.
You notice that it's always between 5 and 8. It's that that age that dads become not essential anymore, but nice to have.
Yeah.
As soon as the kids are independent, they can wipe their own ass, put on their own clothes, put their dishes in the dishwasher. Like that's, it's usually around the age of 7. Like when the youngest is around 7, that's when they'll bounce usually.
Yeah, once you're not necessary anymore. A lot of these guys are finding out the hard way.
Well, the father part's not necessary, but the paycheck is good. They still need that.
Plus the beauty of divorce is the paycheck still comes.
It still comes. They still get the money, but they can get rid of the dad, right?
Right. Well, the reason I'm bringing that up is because I think that in some ways, like I wanted to make sure that I was doing a good job with my daughter. And then also me being red pill aware. And, what's funny is my becoming Rollo Tomasi really coincided with raising my daughter at the same time. So I don't want to say I used her as a guinea pig, but like while I was watching her go from infancy to adulthood, and that helped my understanding of a lot of the concepts that I bring up in my books and what I talk about with you guys here too. But you're right. It's having that daily interaction just a little bit rubs off on her, and then she understands who you are. And even when it comes to especially when didn't want to get into parenting here too much, but like right now I see the village, at least in Western societies, trying to remove that like wholesale from, well, men of course, but like even just parents in general, is like you can't, it's getting to the point where I feel like some point it's going to be illegal to raise your kid. It's going to be illegal to instill values.
Oh, it's pretty much at that point now, right? I mean, like we have a guy in Texas that wants to raise his son, and the court's ordering sex change hormones, right? Mom's winning on that one.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of bullshit is that?
Yeah.
You don't even have control over your own lineage anymore.
Yeah. And what was it? It was Charlize Theron. She's got some adopted little girl,
kids from
and the little kid wants to change sexes, or wants to dress like, it's a little boy and just wants to dress like a girl, I think is what it is. And her words were I don't have the right to make that choice for him. I'm like, you're damn right you have the right to make that choice for him. That you're parenting that's what being a parent is all about. And
the whole role is you have to be responsible for them because they're not considered competent under the law.
Well, so anyways, I'm glad we're talking about this, because parenting and starting a family, bringing, like, I've been sort of, if you've read my last essay, I wrote an essay for women, and I didn't really, I was being kind of facetious in that whole thing. I wanted to put out some information about like what a woman could do to be different, I guess, in where I see us going in the next decade. And obviously the old social contract isn't working anymore. Obviously the guys who get married under the auspices, I guess, of how we used to do it, or how men ought to be, and you need to, build a life and build your life and become the best version of yourself, so you can be a husband, so you can be a better father, so you can,
see that it's like I want to be a better father. I don't want to raise good kids. That's the difference I'm talking about.
Right.
You put that child as an archetype, so it's not actually a human being that you're rubbing off on or teaching or making sure that they're fed every night. It's an extension of your own ego. It's an archetype of the strong patriarch. That kid's like an accessory at that point, and that's what bothers me, because you always see people ragging on these millennial liberal kids with accessory children. But that Norman Rockwell trad type is doing the same thing, except for he just wants his dressed nice in a photo frame for Christmas photos.
Every guy that comes to me, and I think Rich probably can confirm this as well, every guy who is older than I am, or who is about the same age, like let's just say between like 45 and like 65, somewhere in that demo, these are the guys who come to me and say, how do I get my wife to have sex with me again? How do my kids hate me and my wife won't have sex with me? How do I change? How do I turn the ship around? And in all of these instances, it's a guy who was doing the right thing. He was doing what he was told,
what he thought was the right thing.
What he thought was the right thing. He was playing by the rules.
It's like
old set of books.
It's like what Tate said. It's not enough to have a to have the company car and a decent job and and all of that anymore. It's not the 1950s anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Guys, unfortunately, guys are required to bring more to the table these days.
Was it Red Steel here says women divorce and take the kids at an age when they are most susceptible to indoctrination by the feminine imperative. Yes, exactly what I'm saying. And really right now, what I call the village is pop culture, school, religion, everything that is going into forming your kid. If you aren't actively forming that child, yes, that's exactly what's going on. But so what I was going to say is that I think we need to at least come up with some kind of alternative here. We need to, like a lot of the tradcons will say this, we need to go back to the golden era. We need to go back to the 50s. We need to go back when men were men and women were women. And
did you see my tweet on that, by the way, where I said, if you want a 1950s housewife, here's how to be a 1950s husband? Alcohol problem, manual labor.
Yeah.
The backhand of justice.
Yeah, and we're not and my joke has always been this, is that tradcons don't want the red pill, they want a time machine. And I'm sorry, but we have to go forward, people. We have to go forward. I don't think that polyandry or polyamory, I don't believe that is the way forward. I think that's what we're going to try. That's going to be the next logical step that people are going to start pushing us towards that, because what it does is, first of all, it disempowers men. It also makes sure that men, our paternity instinct is completely repressed. We're already doing that right now. So what do you do as a guy who actually wants to have a relationship with a woman and start a family? Family formation is really what we're talking about right here, because tradcons say, well, we need to go back to go back to the church, go back to the old days. The progressive side, I guess, progressive side wants to say, well, we need to go towards the free love degeneracy kind of side. That's what tradcons are going to say. Well, that's degeneracy. So I have two choices right now.
Well, neither one
I
of
can
those
go
are good
backwards,
choices.
or I can go forwards, and forwards looks like degeneracy.
Well, what about again, referring back to Tate, but also other people have talked about this as well. There's a dude on Twitter called Midlife Moves who does some interesting tweets, and he's talked about this as well. And I've talked about this as well myself. And I have to say, I'm not a father, so take anything with a pinch of salt here. However, it seems to me, from my family background, and I'm thinking about my grandfather and then my father to some degree, the father figure seemed to me to be, back in the day, back in the time when these dudes are fantasizing about, the father figure seemed to me to be fairly remote, really, compared to what we're seeing now. So now you've got all these tradcon dudes on Twitter going on about like, oh my God, I can't wait to go and buy, paint the nursery pink sort of thing, and all this kind of gleefulness about children, which always strikes me as a little bit sort of, I mean, feminine. Children, don't get me wrong, children are great, etc. However, this sort of gleefulness about it. Then I think what my grandfather was like. My grandfather had 4 children, I think, like my three brothers and a girl. Obviously, my dad and uncles and aunts and stuff, my aunt. And he was a fighter pilot in the RAF. He was he liked to drink. He was a very sort of like opinionated sort of kind of alpha dude. And I mean, obviously, I knew him when he was older. So not really back in the day, but I never got the impression from him that he was sort of cooing over like what color to paint the nursery, or oh my God, I just can't, all this kind of shit. And to be frank, probably didn't actually spend that much time with the kids because
raising mom's job,
raising the kids was the woman's job. Now again, I'm going to sound like some sort of like sort of patriarchal monstrosity type thing, which is not entirely what I mean. But basically, right. So then what Tate says is, I've seen it, I don't know if he said it in your stream, but I've seen him say this before, so I hope I'm not misquoting him, but basically something along the lines of, I want to have kids, but I'm not going to be there like, I'm not going to be there like every minute of the day for the entire, I'm going to be off doing my own thing. I think he said somewhere, a couple of days a week, you can still be a great formative influence on your kids. And this Midlife Moves dude has said something similar. It's not, the father doesn't have to be sort of present in this kind of domesticated sort of hands-on way the whole time. I don't know what you guys think of that, but
I 100% agree. Why do you think I call it Norman Rockwell paintings?
Exactly.
Because he didn't actually paint what American families were like. He did this aspiration to sell magazines.
Exactly. So if you accept that premise, then suddenly this whole thing about oh, I have to get married and I have to go and move to the suburbs and get the white picket fence starts to kind of crumble a little bit, surely, doesn't it? Because you can have a kid with a woman, and then you can, to some degree, can't you go off and do your own thing? And then as long as you're checking him regularly. I don't know. Is that off whack or out of whack, or is that...
That's kind of been my approach, the same as Tate, just a little less extreme and a little further along. That's why common law. It's going to happen or it's not going to happen. A ring is not going to make my girl like me anymore. It's not going to make her have sex with me anymore. It's not going to keep us together anymore. So just, if it's not a safety net, why have it as a safety net? It's just
statistically, all of those things are proven to ruin relationships, not making them any better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here's the thing. Common law then. We're together as long as we choose to be together. Happens what it happens. If I drop in value, if she gets a better option, it's gone, whatever. It's kind of Taoist that way. She's not mine, it's just my turn. And
that's the way you'd like to see it, yeah.
Yeah, and the best thing I've seen about it is when I don't have that extra ego investment that isn't earned, I don't delude myself into fighting for something that's already dead. It's the best. I just
want to chime in before I go, because I got to leave in like 5 minutes. I'm running a little late.
Yeah, I got one question for you too, Rich. But go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, before you go, what do you see as an ideal situation for yourself right now? Is that like something that, you want to be a father? Yeah. Do you want something that looks like monogamy? I mean, if you could in some way guarantee that? I've had this discussion with Dr. Everett Piper, which I said, we were talking about the differences between like how the secular world does marriage and how it's all risk, it's all downside for men. But men still want to become monogamous. They still want to get with a woman and have that kind of, that bond with a woman and have a mother of their child and someone that they can have as a companion for the rest of their lives and all that. But the state kind of ruins that for us right now. But there's still, I'm throwing this out there because I'm still on the fence about this. But I think there's some aspect or some part of our nature where we want to at least parentally invest in a situation with one woman. Even if we're nailing girls on the side, we still want that monogamy. So what does the ideal relationship look like to you?
Well, I think as far as monogamy goes, if it's what you're going to choose, it should be chosen. It shouldn't be enforced. And I think the greatest clarity came from a conversation I had with Alan Roger Curry on that, right? When it's enforced, it's not going to work. It's got to be chosen. With that being said, I don't think humans are particularly monogamous to begin with. I mean, you said this once in a broadcast we had together, but like monogamy in Sapiens is, it's not factual 1, 2, but monogamy is also the outlier, when it comes to
just the animal kingdom,
reproductive strategy, like reproductive strategies in general. So, I mean, at this point in time in my life, I just turned 46. I'm good, got out of the divorce fine, got a great kid. I get to share time with her. Got a lot of things going on, enjoying what I'm doing in all aspects. I got a non-cohab LTR. She's good. Like you can choose to go down different paths. It's just, you tend to adapt to your environment, right? And in the environment that I'm in, marriage makes no sense whatsoever. I can't see it ever offering any benefit whatsoever. In fact, it's all downside to men in Canada. It's pretty much the same in the States, depending on what state you want, live in, because certain states are a little more friendlier to fathers than others, but others are exceptionally hostile. But it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, I don't want to have any more kids. I don't want to do anything that's going to expose, I'm at the point where it's like, I talk about playing to win, and I think guys should be playing to win, especially in their younger years, 20s and 30s. And then there's a point in your life where you've won and you want to start to start playing not to lose. And those are, they sound similar, but they're two very different things. I'm at the point where at 46, I want to play not to lose a little bit more than playing to win. Like there's certain risks that I'll take in my life. There's risks that I won't take in my personal life that'll potentially fuck me up pretty badly. And I've already been through the divorce machine once. I'm not doing it again. No way that's ever going to happen. And that's just where I'm at. Now,
you wouldn't have another kid, Rich. There's no hankering to.
No. There's too much downside, and there's too much risk. There's way too much risk involved because of the state, because women, can always change their mind at any given time. And it's not getting any better. Like the conditions in Canada are just worsening over time. They're eroding over time, right? So there's a reason why, guys like Andrew Tate have left North America and have gone to a place in Eastern Europe to live the life that he wants to live. And I get it. I mean, that's what I would tell any young man today if they're serious about building a legacy, a lineage. You can build a business from anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter where you want to live. You can live Thailand, you can live wherever the hell you want, and you can run a business from wherever you want. And if you're adamant about having kids, I would do it in a place that's at least not hostile towards fathers, because there's really nowhere that's friendly towards fathers, generally speaking, on a balance of probabilities, but places that are not hostile towards men. And that's where you'd want to consider doing it. And North America just is not that place anymore. It's turning into a feminist shithole. It's turning into a toxic feminist, like, spewing shithole right now.
Yeah, can't argue with that.
Anyway, that's my rant.
Well, yeah, I was gonna. But well, see, here's the thing: is like when I was talking to Piper, yeah, for all of the good, back and forth we had, at the end of that conversation, he's like, no, we still just need to go fix how the government views.
Good,
marriage.
Go do it.
We need to go. And I'm like, that's
been doing that since the 70s.
He still wants to go back to it because there's that dedication to that old social contract, even though the old social contract is now like it's like handcuffs for men.
It's totally and where that has to start from in North America anyway, because people are always like, well, just be a trans cow and wife them up. And I always get these messages from women saying, I'm a traditional conservative and I really like what you say and promote my stuff and let's do a collab together, blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, you know what? If you're really sincerely adamant about supporting men and masculinity and building a world where men are truly valued, get your ass on Parliament Hill and start marching on those guys. Take off your pussy hats and put a dick hat on and start telling the government that men matter, that men have value, that masculinity should be returned to its former state. Because the rest of the toxic feminists have all eroded it away, and there's nobody except for MRA saying, well, that's BS, so let's do something about it. And they've proven ineffective. So who's this march going to come from? It's going to have to come from women, and they're not doing it, because why would they give up the advantage that they have?
Yep.
Yeah. Even the ones that are indifferent, well, it doesn't affect me, whatever.
Anyway,
but I'll tell you this, change one law, I bet you could totally flip around this thing. Make in any divorce, automatically 100% custody goes to the dad. You do that, I guarantee you everything changes overnight.
Or at the very least, start with shared custody. Default shared custody, unless you can prove that one of the parents is a degenerate.
On 100%, because that's what I'm thinking. And from the guy's perspective, a lot of the soccer moms have these arguments that the guys don't want to be the dad anyway.
Shut up.
You make him the primary custodian, and those guys will automatically stick with you because they don't want to do it.
Well, we've already seen how incredibly unsuccessful women are at being single parents and raising children, right? Because jails. You can go right down the list of all the BS that happens as a result of women raising children by
read
themselves.
The boy crisis.
And excluding fathers from the household. So that being said, I got to check out, bros. I know Jack's waiting to come on, so throw him in. I'll see you guys later. Enjoy the rest of the show. I'm going to catch up with it when I'm back home. See you guys.
And, Troy, you can vouch for me. I don't know how much you remember British history, but I do recall during like the Victorian period that men were automatically the caretaker for, like, in a divorce or a separation, the dad was the primary caretaker.
Terrible to admit, I would have to check on that actually. I certainly know, obviously I wasn't quite born in Victorian times, but I certainly know in my childhood it was very much, it was even at that point, it was always very much the woman who would get custody. Although strangely, actually in my case, my father actually ended up getting custody for various reasons. Going back to Victorian time, I mean, quite possibly. Yeah,
well, it's because women didn't have emancipation or voting. Like there was a certain legal standing that they missed, that they couldn't have custody because kids were considered property.
Yeah, quite possibly, yeah.
Jack, what do you think about all this?
Hi, everybody. Good to be back.
Look at you growing the Trudeau on that face there.
I know. Well, you should see what's underneath. Like,
wow.
It's all gone.
Oh, man.
It's all gone.
What'd you do with the hair? Why? I mean, good for you, but why?
I was quite bedridden because of the flu, and the hair got everywhere, and it didn't. I've been getting a haircut every month now, all just detailing it. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. We'll do a retry. We'll just shave it all off and we'll do it again.
Try it again.
John's been banned for 2 weeks and Jack's right in on it.
I know.
I need my shades.
That's funny. How old? Okay, Jack, how old are you?
I am 29 years old.
All right. Do you have any desire for a monogamous relationship at this stage in your life? Or maybe in the future? Maybe that's a...
Not really, to be very honest. Not really. I have a main plate right right now. I've been seeing her for about 8 months, but I've been very honest with her from the beginning. Like, hey, I like having you around. You're good company. She's good conversation, but I still have opportunity to bang chicks, and I still want to do that. If you're not okay with that, well, you're free to leave. If you're okay with that, well, we can make this a freeway thing, whatever. She's like, well, I like you too much to let you go for such things. So I'm just going to stick with you. And I don't care what you do with other girls as long as you keep doing it with me.
Sounds like me at his age. I love it.
Yeah.
I do my best.
See, Ryan's situation is interesting to me because like Ryan, you've put out some tweets where you've said something to the effect that, when it comes to your sex as a man, your primary plate, or the woman that you're with in a monogamy, she has first dibs, right? She has
not sole custody,
first right. But not sole custody, right? So if she's not, if that's not happening, or if she has a problem with that, then you have the option to go outside of whatever it is you want to call it is your marriage. I think, honestly, I think maybe in the future something more alike what you're doing right now might be more effective.
Yeah, well, it's worked honestly from the Married Red Pill. We've just had field reports. It's all field reports, all exposure, all experience, and every guy has found that. It's the same as Sniper Game back in the PUA days. It's never about getting that girl. Just apply that same mentality to a relationship. Well, if you're in a relationship and your girl's not having sex with you for an extended period of time, well, what does she offer? And if the answer is nothing, then there's something you got to address there. Yeah, there's legal problems. This costs this costs that. So what's the obvious solution? Well, I want to get laid, and she's decided to have and to hold is not sacrosanct. So if she doesn't value it, why should I? So you go out there, and then most guys will find out, okay, not only will my wife not fuck me, but none of these strangers will fuck me either. So the guy's like, oh, so maybe I gotta get into shape and stop being a fat fuck. And actually start doing things properly. And then he gets to the point that he actually has options. And the funniest thing is there's nothing that makes a wife more enthusiastic in the bedroom than the idea that if she doesn't do it, some other girl will.
So Ryan, sorry, what's your sort of standpoint on this then? Are you saying to guys, if you're not getting it in your marriage, or are you talking about committed relationship, then you should you're ethically, it's okay.
I don't care about ethics and morals. It's look, if you want to get laid,
you're basically saying just go and get it elsewhere if you're not getting it here.
And it cuts to the core of it, because it's not that I'm telling you what you should do. It's that makes you address the main issue that you're ignoring. It's that you're either not attractive enough to get enthusiastic sex from this girl, let alone any girl, and that tells you what you need to work on, or B, she is truly a dud and not valuable to you, and you realize that you can get better than her from somewhere else, and you need to get rid of the dead weight. So it's not even so much an ethical or moral obligation, even though Martin Luther did say if your wife doesn't have sex with you, you need to sleep with the maid, which is funny. That's the second most important thing he came out with, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
but that's it. Like, you're solving a problem. Your problem is you're sexually unfulfilled. And all the rest of that crap is just post hoc rationalization with morality sprinkled on top of it. No. Your problem is you're a man and you need sexual relations. You need comfort. You need all this stuff. So here's how you get it. Well, I have all these things in my way. Well, maybe they shouldn't be in your way.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys it blows their mind because they're so unused to thinking of themselves first that they don't even know how to react to that. And they fight you tooth and nail. But then you see guys who start doing it, and then they realize, like, I get it. It wasn't that she won't have sex with me because something wrong with her. It's because I was such a crappy husband that she just couldn't get attracted to me. So great post by Archwinger. And I know I'll stop rambling here in a second. That's by Archwinger, where he says, every unhappy wife is a rape victim. It's a wonderful read, and you guys really should. It's not even hyperbolic. He was talking to one of his married friends' wives about sex life. I can't remember what it was. And even though the girl knew, like, to make this relationship work, all I have to do is have sex with my husband, but she just couldn't do it because she just wasn't attracted to him. And the way she described it was the same way that somebody talks about when they were raped. It's just that it's so unnatural that it's like emotionally scarring to a girl. And that's when he goes, if you're unattractive, you're essentially having the same effect as a rape victim has. And it kind of put everything into perspective. Like, just and I know there's a way to bring this all together, but it's harsh, but it's true. You start being the man who's worth getting fucked, and somebody will fuck you. And then at that point, it's just sifting through the waste and finding the gems.
Yeah, that's what we talked about yesterday on Tate with my interview with Tate. Is that Tate doesn't. It's not like he overthinks this stuff, right? It's not like he's out there. Like people say, well, all you guys are doing is talking about girls and how to get girls and how to get laid. And it's like, well, yeah, but it's like for him, it's internalized and it's just something that comes natural to him. And I was telling him this. I said, it's probably because of the way your dad raised you. It's probably because of the, your
lunchbox.
Yeah, exactly. And so this kind of, the stuff that I write about in my book, people think it's revolutionary, but to a guy like Tate, he's like, yeah, duh. Why? How is this a surprise? How is this novel to anybody? Well, it is because we've come ever since the sexual revolution. We've come to the point where we're at right now, and this is why we are talking about poly as an alternative. We even call it. Like I'm reading articles about poly right now and the rise of poly. There was a thing on CBS here in the States. It was like about a 20-minute, maybe half an hour documentary kind of thing, or inside edition kind of thing about poly and how it's becoming more normal. And I'm looking in the chat here and people are saying, well, it'll never be normal. It'll never be mainstream. Bullshit. It's already becoming mainstream and it's already out there in the internet and it's everywhere else. But why is it now? Why is this coming up at this point? Well, because we've got to a point where we've screwed up.
Guy's best option.
Yeah, it's the best option. It is. And
why is it the best option? Why would a guy willingly sign up for that? I mean, I think I would rather. I think I would rather just never get it again. Do you know what I mean?
Well, why do those guys hang out with people that bully them? Because that's the best attention they're going to get.
Yeah, but put it. Here's my perspective, right? Relationships are difficult enough as it is, right? I mean, even when you're with a girl who's really hot and you're having a great time together with great sex, there's still going to be challenges within that relationship because monogamy and being together with somebody is inherently tricky, particularly the longer it goes on, as we all know. And obviously there are ways to mitigate that and everything else, and some relationships work better than others. But nevertheless, why would you then willingly go into a thing? And I've seen documentaries about this as well, actually. The British guy Louis Theroux did a poly episode, and I think he was in California actually, and he interviewed some people. And there's and there's some fucking soy guy and his two some soy guy and this other soy dude who's in IT, and then this fat bird, and they're all together, and I'm just looking at it going, this looks fucking horrendous. You know what I mean? Even if I was,
I love the UK.
Even if I was the even if I and clearly what these guys, like Tate said, what the guys should actually be doing is not bothering with this bullshit. They should be improving their value. But even if I'm the fucking fat soy boy tech dude, I'd rather just. I don't know, man. I would. Well, no, I'm not gonna go advocate that either. But you know what I mean. I'd rather just sit at home and read Proust or something. I wouldn't subject myself to that. I just don't understand why anybody would. Do you know what I mean?
Learn helplessness.
Go ahead, Jack.
Not only have you got to put up with the fat bitch complaining about you not doing the fucking dishes.
But you got to share.
But also, you've got to go. You've also then got to do the dishes while she's banging this other guy. I mean, it sounds terrible on every level.
Yes, because everybody on this panel is used to different. The guys who do that are glad they can get some attention. Like Ryan said, a guy who just wants his wife to hug him. What?
Yeah.
Like, what? We're at a stage where guys are looking for that on the internet, like a simple hug. The only thing that these guys can get is some fat lamb whale, a fat bird, sharing her with some other soy cunt. Sorry, the C word. The C word will get banned.
All right.
But
we're an hour in.
Nobody cares anymore. Curse away. But that's the only thing that can get. And you and Rolo and Ryan and me, we cannot comprehend that. Like sharing our woman with another guy.
Right.
Okay, so
I'm looking for a fat girl.
So I got two things on that. I hear what you're saying, and I was the first thing is I talked about this with Pat Campbell about a week ago because he was like just dumbfounded by this story where there's a new service right now that like people will come and give you a hug, right? Or it's like a cuddle service or something like that where you pay a woman $20 and she'll give you a hug and pretend like she really loves you, or she
used to call that the girlfriend experience.
Yeah, exactly. And I told him when we were talking about that, I said we have so starved each other of human contact. Like guys guys like, what is it, Keanu Reeves, you know, with the hover hands and stuff like that. We are so scared of Keno right now that we'll go to jail or something will happen if we you know, so much as brush up against a woman in the wrong way. And so therefore you've got this generation of the 80%ers of the lower SMV guys who are just starved for not only just attention, but just like human contact. And it's gotten so bad that we can now commercialize it. We can now make money off the fact that these guys want a hug. And that should show you where, you know, the direction of a feminine primary society is going. Because what I see is that, and this will relate to long-term relationships, is that we have so standardized and so normalized gynocentrism and just whatever benefits the feminine imperative. We've done that for so long now that just having human contact is something that is novel, right? It's something that you can commercialize. It's something that you can you can turn a buck off of, and then pretend like you're distributing, you know, the milk of human kindness. And so, well, how do we get to that point? How are we here? Why does that even seem like a good idea? And then, right, what you were just saying a minute ago is these guys who are getting into poly relationships or getting into, they're trying to find something that works for them. And this goes back to what I was talking about when I discussed the theory of strategic pluralism. And that is this, is that there is the top 20% of guys who have, you know, the Andrew Tates, right? And these are the guys who are naturally good with women. They're naturally attractive. They have at least some natural ability to come off as alpha. And these are the guys that women focus on. 100% of women focus on that 20% of guys. So don't get mixed up here. When we talk about the 80-20 rule, it's the attractiveness of men. It's not how women are seeing. Like, women want the top 20%. That's how hypergamy works. It doesn't seek its own level. It's looking for the bigger and the better deal.
Yeah. Why wouldn't they?
And so what happens is, though, that lower 80% of guys is the guys that are paying for cuddles, right? They're the guys that want to just be touched or want to have some kind of, you know, some kind of human contact now. And again, those are the lower guys and
they don't want to earn it. They want it. They want it given to them. Like, what is my intrinsic worth? What is
my value? And so when we say, why would a guy ever sign up for that? Because it goes against our evolved like mental firmware, right? We want, most men, even like Jack, when we were talking about promiscuity, most male animals want to know that the kid is theirs. There is this, we're hardwired to want to be insured in our own paternity. If we are going to be parentally invested males of this species, the deal is this: you have my kid. I will invest in the child if it's my child. That's why we have jealousy. That's why we have all of these things that Dr. Jeff Miller says we need to eroticize and repress. Like, jealousy is a bad thing. And it holds us back. Well, what that is that's repressing that natural instinct to know paternity. And so when we see this, as like everybody on this panel, we go, who would sign up for that? Because we still understand that paternity is important. We have a natural instinct for paternity, but this gynocentric society has taught men, and is still reinforcing the idea that men shouldn't be concerned with their own paternity. So if you can
effective women, women already know they have paternity, so why would we need to care? They don't care.
Right. If you can repress that, if you can model that, model that behavior, if you can find some way to get guys to believe that their interest in their own paternity is a bad thing, you can make them do anything. You can get them to sign up for poly or whatever else, and go out and tell other guys that it's a great idea, because for those guys, that has become their mating strategy. And that's what I get into in some of my my last 3 essays about this, is that poly is for the majority of men, the lower SMV men, the 80%ers, poly seems like a great freaking deal because it gives them sexual access. It gives them something that they're not getting: human contact. Well, I'm in a poly, if a woman wants to be in a poly relationship and she brings you in and you're that beta guy, you probably never had it so good, because what's better, to be completely, an incel and cut off from society and not have any contact, or to have sort of a mitigated relationship and a poly relationship with a woman who still wants to go out and bang the alphas on the weekend, but at least you're getting something. At least you're getting hugs. At least you're getting, a pat on the back or whatever. You're a good boy. Thanks for providing.
You can see.
So it seems like a great idea.
I'd rather buy a rope.
Yeah.
Well, I think the guys shouldn't submit themselves to that. I think a guy in that situation should say, I'm going to find another way around this. And if that means leaving, if that means moving, if that means leaving the country. I mean, I know there are issues with that in terms of the practicalities. But listen, I mean, like other parts of the world, the market is different. Why not? You can go to Thailand, you can go to Eastern Europe. I'm not saying it's all a bed of roses in these places, but look, I mean, if you genuinely believe that your best option is to shack out with another guy who works in tech and some fat bird, then I would say, rather than submit to that option, you should seriously consider other possibilities. And they may be geographic. They may be getting out of that marketplace, because if that marketplace really is genuinely that's the best you can do, then I would say go and play in another marketplace. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't think it's the masculine thing to say, oh, okay, then right, well I'll just shack up with the computer programmer and the fat bird. I just can't see that being. You need to think, okay, so how can I become location independent, or how can I make the money that will enable me to go and make this move? You need to be proactive, and you need to look at other options. And even Tate said this. I mean, Tate didn't need to go to Romania to get laid. I mean, I'm not saying, of course he didn't. He got laid in London and everything else, of course. However, even he was making the point at the beginning of your stream, there are some conditions that you're just not going to change in your country of origin. So you've got to have the option, get the hell out of there, go somewhere else, do something else. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's always been my feeling in my own life, has always been, okay, I'm in this situation here. What's the best I can do in this situation? And if the best I can do isn't good enough, then I'm going to get out and I'm going to find a different situation somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's, I think when we see that situation, when we see a guy who is, I think what's funny is when they do these articles or these documentaries on poly, they always make it seem like it's such a great deal for guys. Like, hey man, you can have a relationship and you can bang other chicks. Like they sell it as if like you can live the lifestyle of Andrew
you can't
Tate.
Polish that turd though, because they never show one good-looking girl.
Yeah,
in those poly things.
I don't know if the stats are out there yet, but I would like to see what the majority of those situations. And I would say that the majority is one guy who is a low SMV guy. Let's just call him a beta men with one woman who has the freedom to go out and knock it out with an alpha on the weekends if that's what she wants to do. And these guys are happy to be there because it is better than being lonely. It is better for them than not getting anything at all. And so it seems like a great idea. Now, that's no way to build a society. One of the things about monogamy, if we want to talk about, the pros and the cons of monogamy, at least it was a stabilizing force in Western culture for a very long time.
And a motivator for guys to get to work.
Right. And it and I talked about this with Tate yesterday, and I've also exposed this in my essays, is that under polyamory the most common polyamory is actually one guy and many women right now. That's been the way it's been for a long time. If you're reading Alpha God, if you've read Promiscuity, it is men's basic nature to want to breed with many women. If they can do that, unlimited access to unlimited sexuality, but there still comes a time where a guy is going to want to be parentally invested in the children that he is having. So we see alpha men, rich, powerful, tribal leaders, dynastic emperors, whatever, very powerful men have many concubines, right? They have one main queen and they have many concubines, and they can reproduce with them as they see fit, whatever. Even in tribal
bring it down to the ground though. Just picture that guy who swears to his side piece that he's going to leave his wife for her in 5 years. She'll hang on forever. Same thing.
Yeah. Well, that's the classic French or sort of continental, kind of
continental. I like that. Yeah, that's the continental way of doing it. But
leave it to the Europeans.
Well, even in somebody's echoing right now. Who's echoing? Is that me? No. So even in tribal societies, the tribal leader would, sequester the virgins, right? I don't know if you guys are reading Alpha God just yet, but even in the patriarchs of the Old Testament, God said, go and wipe out that tribe, kill all the men, kill all the boys, kill all the women who have known men, but save all the virgins for yourself. Right? God is interested in you reproducing with virgins,
You sneaky bastard.
It's all, well, I mean, it's all part of that evolutionary imperative for men to spread the seeds. That's why pornography is such a big deal right now, is because it satisfies that unlimited access to unlimited sexuality that beta males are cut away from and cut out of. And as we have this society that is more female focused and more female empowered, we're going to see more women sharing guys like Andrew Tate. They're going to start looking at these guys and saying, well, I don't want to get with these betas. I don't have to, because all the laws are in my favor. All provisioning is in my favor. All special safety net is there for me. I don't have to get with these losers. In fact, I don't want them even approaching me. So let's make it illegal for them to do so. Yeah, I can concentrate on Tom Brady, being my next boyfriend, right? That's the loose way of saying what are we headed for with this. So with that in mind, how do you prescribe a new way of getting into a long-term relationship with a woman? Now, MGTOWs are going to say, well, I don't want to have anything to do with that. Okay, fine. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about guys who want to actually do better and have
all
a kid,
about the value adds, man.
And how do you build a family? How do you build a society? How do you stabilize a society with building families in this environment?
Society's going to be fine. Stalinist Russia didn't go away, so there's nothing they're going to. No poly couples are going to destroy this thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's just it. The value add. If you want a girl in your life, she has to bring some value to it. And never invest more than the girl. That's like an old pickup thing too. The 2/3 rule with texting. Mm-hmm. Always have her more invested than you. There's no reason you can't apply that to any relationship. Because the beauty of it is the girl will think that she's providing or you're giving her more value than she gives you. And you're thinking the same because you guys have different skill sets. To me, obviously, like a guy can't make a baby. So a girl making a baby is more valuable to him. But to a girl, not being useless is a superpowered. So the guy's more valuable to her. And so there's that there. And as long as you keep in mind that she better be giving me more than what I give in return, and she feels the same way, then there's a reason to be together. You don't need a ring, a contract, or the Jewish zombie carpenter to come in and bless it, because you're actively making it work from a simple proposition that people respond to their incentives and women respond to their best options.
Can I just say one thing here? And this might be outside the scope of the discussion as we want to have it. But of course, the game changer here is if the guy doesn't want to have children, because that then changes up. If we're talking about sort of how can relationships look, going further. If the guy doesn't want to have kids, then that is a different thing. But do you think that should be a separate discussion? Do you want to do we want to keep this one to we're talking specifically about dudes who want to kind of?
I like that.
Yeah.
Because because
if a guy doesn't want it, then what do you like? What do you want? If you just want companionship, find a girl who doesn't want some too.
Because then you're in, and I find myself, I mean, look, I'm getting on a bit, I'm nearly as old as Rich. I mean, my beard isn't as good, but I'm sort of getting up there. Rich has got a kid. I haven't got kids. And I'm being completely open here. I really like kids. I've got a niece. I've got kids. And all the rest of it. For myself, do I want it now? I've been wrestling with it for a long time, and increasingly, you get to the point of thinking, well, actually, maybe that's not going to be part of what I end up doing. So that, and I know other people as well who who are older than me who haven't chosen to have kids and all the rest of it. So when you get into that situation, and I think one of the things that troubles me about the sort of the TradCon blue pill sort of drive is that they are sort of pushing everybody towards this is what you have to do. You've got to have 3 kids. You've got to have, you've got to go to have a homestead in Montana and all the rest of it. But is that right for every guy? Probably not. And so you need to think really carefully about what you want, because if you don't want that, then that then blows open the whole thing, because there's really no, if I say that I don't, then there's really no reason for me to get legally married as well. So then what do I do? Well, can you continue being in the game for almost in
indefinitely?
perpetuity? Well, people would argue you kind of can, if you keep yourself in decent shape, if you keep yourself sharp, if you all the rest of it. I mean, you're not going to be running around like a sort of degenerate hedonist, at 55. I certainly hope not. But you're obviously going to slow down. There's obviously other things are going to become more important to you. Your work is going to become more important to you. You're going to have other activities that are going to fill up that the search for meaning. But can you continue to sort of be single and have different lovers and so on? I think you can, and certainly I know people that are doing that. So I think that option needs to be out there for dudes, because you don't have to think it's just this one thing of like, oh my God, does this mean I'm going to have to get into a polyamorous relationship in California, to have any chance in the sexual marketplace? I mean, not necessarily, no.
Well, here, I'll even do you one better. Jack Murphy. I know everybody loves to grief on him because he lets his girl go and do whatever.
Yeah,
but the difference between him and Rich, like they've both done. I did the raise the kids. I did the trad thing. Wife didn't want any part of it. That's fine. He's got nothing else, and he's like you said, these guys are in their 40s and 50s, and they're still going through, not a care in the world. And if he wants to be a degenerate, well, he kind of earned that. The soy guy who's never had a kid and who's sharing his land whale is totally different than the guy who's already had a family.
Right. Like I'm looking at
to play swinger.
I'm looking at this right here with Hacker Boy here. He says, one friend of mine was talking about a poly relationship, but he's pretty much an alpha and picks girls regularly. What's up with that? That's the way that it's being sold right now to guys, I think, is like, hey, poly's great for you guys because they'll share you. Women will want to share you. And it's like, no, women only, just as
they're competing for you.
Yeah. Just as Pook has always said, is, women will share a high value alpha rather than be saddled with a faithful beta. So which one are you? Yeah, those alpha guys, like Tate is living exactly that right now. You can also talk about Dan, like we talked about Dan Blitzerian a little bit, like he's like living the dream kind of thing, and everybody's just going to hate on him because he buys his girls, whatever. But here's the thing, but he's still a high value guy. Yeah. Women still want to get with that guy, even if Tate didn't have his money, even if Dan Blitzerian didn't have his money, he's still a high value guy, and women will still be attracted to that guy and will want to share that guy. Maybe he's not like a millionaire shooting videos in Maui, but there's, by context, by order of degree, women are going to want to be with a guy that they want to have babies with, who they want to be with. They have a genuine desire for. Like I was talking with Tate yesterday. And Tate is very adamant about this. He says, you know what? You could, it's my way or the highway, right? It's like you can be a part of this relationship as long as you want. People always say, and he said this yesterday, people always criticize him and say, well, he must be like controlling those girls, or they must live in fear because
it's an opt-in problem.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And he's like, no, he's like, they can go whenever they want to go. They know what the deal is. This is the deal, and this is what they want to be a part of. They willingly want to be in this. And say, well, they're financially dependent on you, whatever. He's like, they can leave anytime they want to go.
And then they say, oh, they're damaged women. I saw somebody in the stream like, only a damaged woman would stay with Andrew Tate.
No, seriously, it's the same thing with my girl. I told her up front, this is how I want to do it. You want to be part of it? Sure. If you don't, leave. She didn't leave. I don't have her chained up to my bed or anything.
Isn't that the consent thing we're supposed to get?
Yeah. Okay, maybe she didn't sign a form or anything, but she doesn't have to text me. She kept texting me all day long. Like, we've been talking about guys trying to get a hug. I can get her off of me. I mean,
but here's the thing, right?
I'm Googling that. How can I get a girl off of me? Like, wow, people.
You don't need to be. You don't even need to be Tate, though. To be honest, I mean, you know, and like he's taken it to. I mean, I don't know what his setup is at the moment, but it sounded like he basically had them all living together in the house and all that kind of thing, and that's the sort of Bilzerian thing, I suppose, as well. It doesn't have to be like that, right? I mean, when I was 39, I had and surprising and fellas who are watching this who are sort of in their 20s or under 30. it definitely gets better in your 30s without a shadow of a doubt. And I mean, when I was 39, it was one of the best years for game that I ever had. And there was a point when I had 5 girls that I was seeing concurrently. And they would come around, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, and it was bloody exhausting. And I had to sort of let it, I had to sort of slowly let it all go. It was terrible. But and they knew.
Silence for Troy.
I hadn't promised monogamy to any of them. I wasn't sort of rubbing their noses in it, but they kind of knew that I was dating around. We weren't serious. That you could do this kind of stuff, and you could do this kind of stuff, until you start to be less interested in doing that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like I said, I was 39 and I was doing that. And I'm certainly not Andrew Tate. I wasn't a minute, I didn't have a Lambo parked outside. You can do it, if you keep yourself in shape and a little bit about game and a little bit about dynamics.
I got the resolve to follow through. I think that's the key.
And a lot of
all the guys have learned helplessness.
A lot of guys forget Tate earned his money with the girls.
Well, he did as well. Yeah, absolutely. He said he built his value.
He saw the niche in the market and he exploited it. Yes, he even said that with me yesterday. That's what he does. But like you've got to have that alpha mindset. You've got to have that idea that you are the prize. You're your own mental point of origin. And why I say like a guy like Tate is a natural alpha is because that was instilled in him from a very early age by his alpha father, right? He passed that along. And that's where he's at right now. What you do with that is up to you after that. Now we have this one chick in the chat right now, Susanna. She's chiming in and chiming out, she's laughing.
Susanna, how you doing?
Yeah, hi. Right.
Hi.
Well, here's the thing: is she? And I know what she's laughing. Oh, you just have to be just have to be the guy that a woman respects. Yes, that's exactly that's exactly the words we even used yesterday on Tate's interview. Yeah, you do. But that's the problem, is that there's still 20% of guys who women actually have respect for. And the only reason they respect them is because they're aroused by them in the first place, because they have something that women want. And I'm not saying, I think what women, when they hear a conversation like this, or when we talk about monogamy, like when Jordan Peterson talked about socially enforced monogamy, which he was absolutely correct about, women bristle at that right now. Because they think because it goes against their existential fear, which is, I don't want to be forced to have children with a lesser man. I want to optimize my hypergamy. That is what nature, evolution wrote into your DNA, is to look for a better than merited situation. Like I said, hypergamy doesn't seek its own level. And so much so that it is built into women's psyches to avoid that at all costs. Well,
I only sleep with tens.
Yeah. Well, guess what? We've built for the last 50 years, ever since the sexual revolution, we've built Western culture around that idea. Around the idea that you don't have to get with the beta male. You don't have to do this. You can be independent. A strong, independent woman is independent of men. Well, what men? The men she doesn't want to have anything to do with. But yet she still wants to have sex with the guys that she respects, the guys that she is aroused by, that top 20%ers. So there's nothing in this conversation that we're having here today, or I had yesterday with Cobra Tate, that in any way goes against what it is that, against the idea that you should be paired up with a guy who is a lesser guy. Right. And now by order of degree, but yeah, I completely 100% understand that. Go ahead, Jack.
Well, that's a bit of the thing, like to stay on subject, like if you want to be monogamous, the first thing guys have to get in through their head is mental point of origin. And the way that I always describe that is, you cannot help somebody else. Yes, Susan from HR. Hi there. Hey, Susan. But okay, you cannot help somebody else if you haven't helped yourself first. And a lot of guys do not understand this. They're like, no, I have to sacrifice myself for my family. No, you help yourself first so you can help your family. And that's how you get the respect in that situation.
Yeah, see that, and what you just described is the old social contract. Is that guys, they want to be serviceable. In fact, that's what religion has taught guys, is that you have men, I think, because we tend to be more, our natural proclivity is to be more idealistic. We have idealistic concepts of love, and we want to know what is possible. Men are interested, according to Dr. Steven Pinker, men are interested in things, women are interested in people, right? We want to know what is possible. We want to believe in, we want to say, well, there's a river over there, I want to create a bridge. Let's see what would it look like with a bridge over there? That kind of speculation is sort of like intrinsic to the male psyche, is to want to do that. But there's also that sense of, because of that idealism is good for guys, but it can also be a detriment to guys because people can play on that idealism. And that's why when we talk about honor, or we talk about like integrity or duty and that kind of stuff, it's like, yeah, that can be a very good thing, but it can also be a point of manipulation for people. And I think that right now, because we have repressed conventional masculinity for as long as we have, that sense of honor, that sense of duty, or this like camaraderie amongst men, that wanting to be serviceable, has been manipulated by, well, first of all, by it's been manipulated by religion for a very long time, but also now in a new feminine centric society, it's being used against guys. So a real man does X. Well, that X is usually, oh, he's got to be a stepfather. He's got to do whatever like I was, what was it? The whole thing with Keanu Reeves. Like recently, people saying, "Oh, finally, a real man, a guy who is with a woman who is age appropriate." So a real man, but a real man.
Why is he more of a real man than Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yeah,
his 25-year-old.
Well, because Keanu Reeves fits into, he aligns with the feminine imperative. Was Leonardo DiCaprio aligns with his own innate male mating strategy, unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. That's why he's a cad. That's why he's a cad, and Keanu Reeves is a dad. And if you fit in with that, you're rewarded for that. You're patted on the back. You get your hugs, right? You get your hugs if you do what we tell you to. If you're a real man, then we will reward. We have all the real man medals. We have all the merit badges for the real men. And so you only get those when you do what the feminine imperative tells you should do. And so guys line up with that. Oh, a real man is in. I said this yesterday with Andrew. I said, there's the idea is that you're more secure in your masculinity if you allow another guy to bang your wife. Like that's the thing. Jeff Miller was saying, well, we need to eroticize that jealousy. We need to find some way to tamp down that jealousy in men so you can be more secure in your masculinity by allowing your wife or your girlfriends to go out and nail a guy on the weekends. That is what I'm talking about here, is that we hold that as a reinforcement. That's a behavioral reinforcer is what that is. It's a reward for proper behavior or proper thinking according to the feminine imperative. And that's really what I see in going forward into the 2020s. That is what is going to define how we're going to form families, how we're going to form
basically electrocuting dogs in cages.
Yeah, it's behavior, it's operant conditioning is what it is.
Oh yeah, here, so for the audience, if you don't know what I'm talking about, when I mentioned learned helplessness, it was an experiment they ran, I think in the 60s, where they put two dogs in cages. The first type, the cage was open, the second type, it was closed, and they'd run an electric shock through it. The ones who had the doors open would just run out because who wants to get shocked? The ones who had the doors closed, they used to fight and try and get out of the cage. They couldn't do it. After a while, they found those dogs stopped trying to escape and just sat there yelping when the shocks happened. Now, that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is once they opened the doors and then continued to shock the dogs wouldn't escape. They would just sit there. And so it's literally a learned form of helplessness. And what Rollo's talking about, best I've been able to interpret it, it's applying that to men on a social scale, or on a societal scale. Yeah, that's how it's manifesting. I don't know if there's some evil warlord who's planning this from the war room, but that's how these poly guys end up putting up with this crap because they've been conditioned for it. But it's literal gaslighting or brainwashing.
But you shouldn't put up with it. You shouldn't submit. You shouldn't.
Yeah, but that's the thing. The dog who's always had that door open in his cage, you shock him, he's like, fuck it, I'm out of here. But you get that dog that's been sitting in that cage being shocked with no escape. Even when an escape is offered, he just won't take it. It's a psychological thing, and I don't know what the solution to it is. Because if you tell that dog to escape, he'll bite you for trying to pull on him.
Yeah, it's a bit, and maybe I'm getting too deep into this, but like Plato's cave. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Like, here's the answer. Here is the other side of things. But these guys will try to fight you on it for calling them out on their bullshit. Like, I can be in a poly relationship and you should man up and things like that.
Yeah,
like,
you should be more secure.
I have been shamed for staying single by a guy who the very next day posted a picture with his land wheel girlfriend who was leaning out on him. And I'm like, really? Like, oh, well, if that means being in a relationship, well, thank the gods then.
She'll defy gravity to get away from you.
You know, I'm gonna
will show you that picture, Ryan.
I'm gonna put this up here just one more time here, because Philip put this out there. He says, I think big corporations will end up mostly being run by women, and the top 20% of men will partake in working for those corporations. You're not too far off there, dude. What I'm seeing right now, I just read this article about how by 2030, by once we get through the next 10 years here, that women, what is it, like 60 some odd % of women will be single, like between the ages of, like, say 18 and I think 38 or somewhere.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
And that those are the projections coming up, is that more and more women will be they'll be self-partnered, like Emma Watson, right?
Oh.
That's another thing. It's like, you see, one more thing you have to contend with is that now we have
that they're delusional.
Well, that they're delusional, yes, but like, I've said this before, and I don't mean to dunk on MGTOWs here, but I really see MGTOW and feminism as being the sort of mindset for segregating the sexes. Like, women go over here, men go over here, never the two shall meet. And you go do your thing. We're going to be fine over here going our way. And if you want to come over to our side of the playground and you want to play with us, well, that's fine, but you're going to be on our rules. And the feminists like, yeah, if you want to come over here, you have to be more, if you want to be a real man, then you've got to be a male feminist. It's all I see right now is this segregation. When I read that article, I was like, this is where we're headed. This is we're talking about what's going to happen in the next 10 years.
High school rules.
More and more segregation between the sexes. Where the other thing is, because of Me Too, more men don't want to work with women. They don't want to hire women because it's too much of a risk, and they don't want to work with them, to the point where, like, someone like what's Ariana Huffington has to start a hashtag saying, mentor women, because men are just, they're saying, you know what, with Me Too, I don't want to have anything to do with this. I'm out. Forget it. We're segregated. So we're segregated in work. We're segregated, socially right now. And that's no way to keep. Well, I mean, I don't care one way or the other whether we're keeping a functional society or not, but I do think it is healthier for individuals to actually come together and form families and invest themselves in the next generation. How do you do that? How do you bring women and men together? And now, of course, because we're in a feminine primary social order right now, I think the bigger task is in some way humbling women, in some way disentitling women to this, what social media and what 50 years post sexual revolution has sort of bred into women as being what I call the fempowerment narrative. How do you bring a woman back down to earth and say, look, here's what needs to happen, without it seeming like you're being a misogynist, like you're trying to repress women, like you want to control them. You want to, what was it? There was a tweet not too long ago where somebody said, you have to choose. If you're a feminist, you have to choose between being with a guy, being in a relationship, or having independent thought. Like that's how they're selling this right now. It's like, if you are paired up with a guy, if you're in a monogamous relationship, if you're going, the sun hat goddesses, if you're going back with if you're going back to that old monogamy, that old social contract, that precludes independent thought from a woman right now. That's how they're selling it.
Yeah, but you can't fight the power of good dick. By the way, Jack, why did you do that? Those people were horrible. And he wears a suit like Pat Stedman. How does he not know how the buttons work? But I'm out.
Your reaction was priceless.
Can I just say to that guy's super chat, though, the little bit at the end when he said even guys working in corporate are going to have to be alpha. Actually, there's a counter argument to that. The guys who are going to do best in corporate work are going to be would have to be beta. And I think in all things, I think out of all sources, I think it was I saw a Sandman Sandman video recently where he was saying, "Hi everyone, Sandman here," and he was saying
he just wanted to do that.
He was saying that some dude had written to him and basically said, you know, if the problem is if you are. He got fired from his job at a corporation because he pissed off too many people, and because the HR departments are run by women and so on and so forth. And I've actually had this experience in my own corporate life. You know, you actually have to be, and I'm not putting myself up as sort of, you know, what sort of world-class alpha or something, but you know, you've got to be the opposite of that, really. You've got to keep it on the down low in a sort of a work situation. That will probably only increase as times go on. But just to this point about you know, what do guys do and everything. I mean, I'm reminded of I read somewhere about economics. They say that, you know, we have our own personal economy. So there's the wider economy, there's the macro economy, and there might be a recession, or there might even be a collapse, or whatever. And there's there's all of that going on. But that doesn't mean on a personal level that you're necessarily gonna have a disastrous time. I mean, in 2008, you know, the financial crisis. I mean, there was, you know, it hit the UK quite badly, actually. I mean, a lot of people ended up losing their jobs and everything, and you know, some bad shit happened. I was actually all right. And I'm not saying that gleefully, but as it happened, very fortunately, I was actually okay because I held on to the job that I had, and I was getting paid sort of, you know, quite well and everything. And so you've got to, as much as we can talk about doom and gloom in the bigger scenario, you say, oh my God, you know, all these women are just going after the, you know, the Tate Chads, and oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to get into a poly relationship. No, don't think about that. Think about your own personal economy. Okay, how can I maximize opportunities for myself? And there are always ways. You need to look for the hacks. You need to look for the ways to buck the trend. It doesn't matter what's happening to Joe Bloggs down, you know, who works in the cubicle next to you. Sod him. How are you going to make this work for yourself? And there will be.
You don't even have to look that hard. That's the thing. All these guys that are talking about MGTOW's the only way, they're getting out of your way.
Yeah.
The Pareto principle isn't like a law of nature. It's that 80% of guys are just going to part the seas and like, you go after it, bro. And you're just like, thanks. And you walk up to the front of the line.
And that's actually a good thing. And as a guy who's under 30, knowing all this, I have never felt a bigger sense of freedom than I do now. Like, okay, yeah, it's like, okay, so society is pretty much against me. Marrying is off the table, and kids, well, they probably have to reform the education system, which is not going to happen. What am I going to do now? Like Troy just mentioned, I have a cubicle job as well. Yes, I have a day job. And the guy next to me is probably in debt because of his fat girlfriend, and he wants to have AirPods and a big screen TV on a loan. While I'm like, well, you know what? I don't want those things. I don't have anybody in my life who I have to take into calculation when it comes to my own money spending, things like that. Mate, you know what? I've always liked the idea about early retirement. Well, since everything is off the table, why not strive for that? How do I do that? Well,
what are your goals? I'm going to get to one man's way. I'm going to get to your super here in just 1 second. But I just wanted to point out here that going forward, knowing all of this is like half the battle, right? But what do you actually do with it? What is the strategy? What are you going to, and I can't say that there's one specific strategy to get to having a monogamous relationship with a woman, particularly
now.
Yeah, well, but I will say this is that, and everybody on this panel, even Rich, have just referred to this, is that if that is something that you want to do, first of all, you have to know yourself well enough. You have to have some insight. Like, what do I want out of life? Do I want to have kids? How many do I want to have? How am I going to facilitate that? When I was doing the Man in Demand conference back in 2015, I had several fathers come up to me and say, "Oh, I can't wait to give my book to to my kids, or you know, whatever. When is it too early to give my book to his kids?" kind of thing. But in that, guys were asking me questions. One of the reasons I wrote book 3 is because there's guys who were parents that wanted to know this stuff, that they wanted to say, how can I incorporate this into my parenting? How can I incorporate this into my marriage, my life? And so that's one thing I wanted to say, is that the red pill is not just limited to how many girls can I go bang. How many, how can I solve my sexlessness prospects? It's also understanding your family, understanding what you're going to teach your kids, understanding what they're going to be taught by the village, understanding all of this stuff, and then acting accordingly and creating that own plan to yourself. But in all of those scenarios, you have to be the primary. You have to be the one that's making those decisions. You have to be the guy that's why I always stress mental point of origin. You have to be the one who is saying, what do I want for my life? And make yourself the first thought when you're making those decisions. That is the primary element of mental point of origin. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to feel good about myself, make me number one. No, it's actually training yourself, internalizing the idea that when you have to make a decision, you pop up in your brain before anyone else does, because most guys for the last 50 years have been trained to put women first, to put their moms first, to put their wives first, to put their girlfriends first, to how can I facilitate the relationship? Relationships are hard work. How can I make it better? Get up in the morning and look yourself in the mirror and how do I make this bitch happy? Like that's the
cold showers.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you can finally say, look, I'm the primary person in my life. I'm the primary person in any family that I'm going to have. Like Tate, for instance, is like, you know what? You can be a part of this, or you can walk. There's always a freedom to do whatever it is that you want. But being that guy, being the guy who is the primary in your own life, is where all of this starts. So if you decide you want to live a life like Ryan is right now, and you want to say, okay, I've decided I want some kind of monogamy, but I certainly don't want to sign on the dotted line with the state. I would say that that's pretty much out for everybody in the coming decade. You don't want to get involved in a state government run gynocentric marriage contract. That's where my point of separation, my disconnect with Dr. Piper is like, I told him this. I said, wouldn't it be great if you could just get back to the idea of having like a religious ceremony, or what he called a covenant marriage, where it's just like before you, God, and your friends, and there's no contract like they did in the old days, right? Before there was a US, right? Where people would get married, and that was it, and everybody in the society.
Yeah, and back then, everybody would call her a pirate hooker. She tried to leave you, so everybody stayed together.
Yeah, and there was,
and then her brothers would come and beat you up if you slid on somebody else's DMs.
Right. So if that's something that you want to do, you still have to be the primary. You still have to be the most important person in that relationship. You have to be the guy who is deciding, making decisions, and being the guy. Thank you very much. The guy that woman wants to be with and respects and wants to be involved in that relationship. In all of these scenarios, you have to be the primary. So I think that's where we need to sort of start with all this, and then from there. Well, okay, now that I have that insight, what do I want for my life? Do I even want monogamy? Like, do I want to just be MGTOW? Okay, fine, go be MGTOW. But at least you've made a conscious decision. At least you've made an educated understand. You understand yourself. You understand that's not what you want to do. Fine. Go off and do whatever you're going to do. If you decided like, I want to have kids, and the only way I can do that is if I get into a long-term committed relationship, and because of my beliefs, my convictions, whatever, that's the only way. Great. You still have to be the most important person in that relationship. Otherwise, it fails. Otherwise, you end up like 90% of these guys, sexless marriages with a nagging fat bird wife, right? Yep. I'm going to put this on real quick here because he gave us $20. It says, what strategies? One man's way. I know he's going through a breakup right now. This is probably like the 4th or 5th time I've answered this one. But so what strategies help get over a breakup? It's been 6 months and it still hurts. The pain being worse than the positives from the mediocre women in the current climate is what makes MGTOW seem like the way to go.
Ooh, I can take this one, actually.
Sure.
This is perfect. This guy, Frenchie, 60 years old, wife widowed, was his unicorn. She died, and she said, I want you to start dating again after we go. He's in your situation. Exactly. Sorta. Every time he was dating a girl, none of them could match up to what his wife was like. And so the strategy I gave him was, why don't you enjoy a good old-fashioned hate fuck? Have sex with a girl you don't like, just for the sport of it. And the idea was it would stop putting that onus on every other girl to match this idealized vision you have of your fiance. Because I remember you talking about her. Dude, she's horrible. So this idealized image you have of her that's so hard to break away from, that's not even her. That's you embellishing her. So if you're getting with girls and you're actually not trying to compare them to this ego invested thing that doesn't actually exist, it's just a hate fuck. it's for sport. It's fun. It's enjoyable. It's not any more than that. And then once you start getting a few of those, you stop putting this huge onus on the girl to be the Virgin Mary with Madonna tits every time you go out there, and then end up disappointed because she doesn't live up to this unrealistic standard. So like I said, a hate fucker 2 will really help with that one. It really takes them off the pedestal, and you realize that you don't even particularly like this girl, but you also don't like not getting your rocks off. And so now you're just solving a problem. And now that that emotional investment is off the table, you can focus on what's really in front of you instead of what you want to be there. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And notice the time that you have, because now you don't have to take her into consideration, because now you can do whatever you want. Like, have you ever wanted to take classes in a certain kind of sport or a certain kind of art, whatever? Now you can just go and do it. And yes, it will hurt. Absolutely. Like, I've been there. I've had my one-itis, but you have to see the time that all of this frees up for what it is. So invest that in you, even though things will still hurt and you will still think about her. At least you won't sit in your room pouting. Like, if there's anything you want to avoid, it's that.
Yeah. And the old adage as well, when you're going through hell, keep going. I think it's an old adage, and I think then Eminem used it in a song. But
probably.
The ancient rapper.
Yeah. Okay, boomer. But but yeah, when you're going through hell, keep going. I mean, it is tough, and this is going to sound like this is an excerpt from Pat Stedman's upcoming masterclass. But you need to feel the feelings, man. And I've learned this through bitter experience, because I take issue a little bit with the sort of the old PUA advice that, if you want to get over her, bro, get 10 other women. I mean, yeah, that helps a bit, but if you had, if you were really into this woman and you were with her, I don't know how, you're with her for a length of time or whatever, having sex with other people, it will give you a momentary lift at best, but it's not actually going to take away that pain. And the reality is, unfortunately, these things take time. And I'm somebody who's, I've had issues with different sort of addictions and things like this. So I'm somebody who's a past master at using different substances to try to escape from feelings and different behaviors as well.
That's
and in the end,
you should say that.
And it doesn't work. That's the problem. It doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? Unfortunately, and it's a bloody literally it's a pain, but you have to go through it and feel it, and in the end, it will start to ease.
That's interesting. I just put in the chat there the link to one of my posts called Detox, and I was exploring this, I think back in 2012 or 2013, and really there's a physical component to breaking up with a girl.
Yeah.
When you get into a relationship, when you are when you have that constant reward, that constant and we will say it's a dopamine hit. It's really not a dopamine hit. It's really the good and
serotonin.
It's serotonin. It's what is it?
The
good endorphins that come from a relationship. There's a constant reward, and when you take that away, you have a physical reaction to it. That's why guys have a really tough time with this, because they invest themselves as a result of that good feeling. So what guys do, like Troy, is they turn to alcohol, they turn to drugs, because they're trying to find some way to restart that. It's part of the extinction burst, really is. It's guys trying to get back to that good feeling that they had when they were with that woman, and it's hard to get over, because there's a physical aspect to it, there's a psychological aspect to it, and you need to detox. That's why I wrote that. It's actual detoxification. I think, what is it, the chemical signature or whatever it is that is like love, or the chemical cocktail that runs through through your body when you're infatuated, when you're in love, that kind of stuff is very similar to heroin. And so I'm not saying you're all heroin addicts, maybe you are, but there's junkies. Really, what does heroin do? I mean, it puts the same kind of feel good endorphins into your bloodstream. And so when you remove that, there is that psychological aspect and there's a physical aspect of it as well. So that my first my first advice is you need a detox and understand that the physical aspect of it is also probably contributing to what you're feeling. If you're 6 months out and you're still thinking about this person, what you really need to do is have the insight to say, why am I still attached? Why am I still involved in this? Why am I so invested in my scarcity mentality? Why is it that I think that she's the best I could possibly have ever done? Guys will come up to me and they will say, like, one of the reasons I wrote War Brides is because so many guys came to me and said, why is it that the girl I was just with is just, you know, within a week she's with another guy, but yet I'm here, I can't move on, I'm still pining for her, I want to kill myself, I want to XYZ, right? Because I can't get over her. Help me. How do I get over her? And if I wish I had like some magical, you know, potion to give it to sell guys to make those feelings go away. But even if I could do that, these guys will still have that question in their head. What if? How do I get past the what if? How do I get past the one that got away? And they're thinking like chicks. They don't realize that the reason that they think this way is because they've been conditioned to think emotionally, to put emotion first rather than rationality first. And so they dwell in that emotional state of being broken up with. And the other part of this is I get guys who will say this to me. They will say, I can't stand the idea of her with another guy. I cannot stand it. It tears me apart. I want to either go kill her, kill myself, kill the guy, whatever. I can't abide by the pain of thinking about her being physical with another guy. And this, I'm going to tie this into the topic today here. That is why poly will fail. That is why eroticizing that jealousy will fail, because there's still that aspect of being invested in a woman who was supposed to be the one who you were going to share your paternity with. You want to know, even 6 months after the relationship, you want to know that she is still going to be the person who is not cuckolding you, not deceiving you. And that's, like I said, it's deeply rooted in our mental firmware as guys to want to know paternity. Even after an investment is over with a woman, guys they'll still dream about the woman. She'll still be somebody important to them. What? Go ahead.
You think we're going to see violent acts in these poly relationships?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, because
that's
some of them start working out probably.
And I'll tell you,
I don't know if they could.
And actually, unless these guys do what we're talking about, become better versions of themselves, make themselves their own mental point of origin, they will still be susceptible to that, because what will happen is a progressive society, that call it degenerate, whatever you want, will convince these guys, these loser guys, that the only way for them to get sexual access is to be in a poly relationship. And then when they get into those relationships, it will be reinforced in them that they're better men, they're real men, they're secure in their masculinity. We're going to pat you on the back. We're going to reinforce it with hugs. We're going to reinforce it with sex. You're a better guy because of all of this.
Unless you don't invest first, because that's what Tinder is, essentially. A girl's got 5 dicks on speed dial. The difference is he doesn't invest in that girl. None of those guys do.
And so and Jeff Miller said this as well. He says, Jeff likes to sell it as like, well, I'm more intellectual and I'm evolved above this. So I don't feel jealousy anymore. And I know all this good stuff. And I've eroticized jealousy. And now it's something that's doesn't affect my way of seeing how even
good
Jack
for him. Does he consider his PhD super intellect to be even near the norm?
Well, that too, but and even and I don't mean to dunk on Jack Murphy, but like in the blog that he wrote, he felt like he was a better man because he'd finally gotten past that jealousy and was encouraging his girlfriend to go out and nail other guys. So there's that aspect of feeling kind of self-righteous, sort of more building your self-esteem in those situations, but that's those guys. That's not everybody. And when you take that incel and you finally give him hope in a poly relationship, and she goes off and like we were just talking about with Katie Hill, the state rep in California, who was in a poly relationship, and the jilted husband whatever the definition that is, the jilted husband didn't have a problem with Polly when she was bringing girls into the relationship and he was nailing like 2 or 3 girls at the same time. It was when she fell in love with another guy. And that's when he came out and started posting those pictures. That's when we're going to have a discussion about revenge porn, because this guy in a poly relationship couldn't handle that jealousy, couldn't handle that. Exactly what this guy's talking about here. He was invested in the idea that this woman is going to be his. I said this yesterday on Tate's shows. Every man wants a slut. He just wants her to be his slut.
Mm-hmm. And well, I think on the Louis Theroux Polly documentary that I saw, there was a couple. Well, so there was one guy, and he was actually kind of a pretty decent looking guy, and he was with a girl who was actually quite cute. So they were sort of outliers in the poly community because they weren't actually too bad. But the girl was actually pregnant. And actually, of course, you know, we can imagine, we can dig a little bit deeper into this, but and then she actually found then she found another guy. So she was actually pregnant, you know, a few months in, and he was going, yeah, well, she's found somebody else that she's got close to now, and they're sort of having this thing. And I was, and the first dude was supposedly the father. I mean, of course, you know, who knows whether that was actually the case or not, but what a horrendous situation to be in. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if that was his child that she was carrying, what a terrible situation to be in, to have the mother of your as yet to be born kid going off and, you know, canoodling with some other guy while she's actually pregnant. I mean, what a terrible position to put yourself in.
I had this sent to me. I don't know if you guys can see this. I'll read it. I had this sent to me this morning, actually, in my email. I don't know how to pronounce her name.
Ooh, that sounds like a nice Irish name. Maybe it's Welsh.
47 years old. Looks like she's probably in shape to some degree. This is a Tinder profile. Ever dreamed of living on an uninhabited island? Here's your chance. I'm a bi mom in long-term open relationship, father of the kids, looking for a lover, male or female, to join me on the island where I am developing an eco-survivor tourism project. Got to be comfortable to eat raw food, non-vegan paleo style, polyamory, minimalism, sustainability, sensual massages. The ultimate dream is a poly community. Swipe right if you want to become a part of this. Anybody ready? You guys want to be a part of that? Maybe we're talking about alternatives to long-term relationships. Does this look like a good deal? Dude, 47 years old.
That sounds like a theme park, and no wonder why she's in shape. She doesn't eat. She lives off of rocks and sticks.
If it's possible to have a worse event than Fire Festival, that sounds like it.
Yeah,
the Fire Festival for poly losers.
Yeah. Well, and what I get, and I didn't mean this to be like sort of a dunk on poly thing, but like I see this more and more. This is going to be sold as a solution to monogamy in the future, because we're getting to the point where women have been empowered and entitled to the stage where they don't need beta men. They're independent, strong, independent women, but they're independent of beta men. They still need the alpha. That's what she's looking for. She's looking for an alpha lover in there. She's already got the guy, the father of the, the guy who's cool with
alpha
it.
Males don't eat raw food.
Yeah, maybe that's true. But, and so that is some sort of alternative. And that's what I was talking about at the beginning of this show, is that there's that extreme end of it. And then there's let's go back to the 1950s, housewife thing, but what's in between? Like, should there even be it seems to me what's in between is just women being segregated to one side and MGTOWs being segregated to the other side, and that's the only other answer here. And there's got to be some other way that we can bring men and women together, because we are complements to each other. When it's good, we are complements to each other, and we're better together.
I think the perfect idea is never settle, always make vertical moves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, honestly, that's the thing I always ask. Guys say you have to get married for families, whatever. I'm just like, explain what happens in an LTR after you put a ring on it that makes marriage a next best step. Like, where's the benefit in that versus just cohabitating with a girl? And nobody has an answer.
Right. And I can
there's
say
one, but that was like such an outlier. It doesn't even matter.
Well, like when I was talking to Dr. Piper about this, he agreed with me pretty much on the aspects of how marriage, just like Rich says, is all downside with respect to men. It's all risk. It's all overreach. It's all downside for that guy. The only thing that I see article after article of these people trying to say, well, married men are richer and they're healthier and they make more money.
The richer, healthier men are the ones that get wives.
Yeah. So correlation, causation, right? But so we will, but it's still being sold on the basis of the old social contract. You'll be healthier. You'll be better off if you have okay. But let's look at the opposite side. And I can show, we can do a full show on like the upside and the downside of marriage. And we can make those comparisons. But at the end of the day, marriage is a bad deal for guys. The way we do marriage now is a bad deal for guys. People want to say, well, Rollo, you're married. How can you be against marriage? Well, I'm against the way we do it now. Yeah. I think as an institution, marriage used to be a good idea. Now it is the worst thing that a guy can do.
Yeah.
What's the solution? How do you, in that environment, how do you bring men and women together so that there's at least a cohabitation?
Well, let's solve this. You're saying men and women. That has like a connotation that you need to help other people. Just fuck them.
Oh yeah.
Deal with yours. You want masculine center of or you want your center of origin? There. Society can do what it wants. Enjoy the decline. I'm getting mine. Every institution, whether it be a relationship or whatever that I get into, is going to provide more value than it takes away from me. Period.
And can I add to that? Like, what Ryan says, well, it's completely true. And especially for guys, don't focus on the relationship. The relationship is her part. That's her job. Now, again, don't get married. Not in this system. Don't do it. But that doesn't mean you can't have a girlfriend or a couple of girlfriends in your life. But they will bring up the relationship as long as you focus on you. Now, again, we are complements to each other. So don't go MGTOW, bang dolls, things like that. You be you, you have yours, and that's why I always say, learn proper game, learn to approach, things like that, because you'll want that when you see a girl you find attractive. But after that, now that we're in this kind of centric social order where marriage and things like that are just a bad idea, there are multiple ways to keep doing this. Have a woman live with you, things like that. Like, the state doesn't need to know you bang each other. You can just say, well, she's renting a room there and I'm renting this room here, things like that. There are multiple options to this. Or like Ryan has right now is the common law marriage, right?
Yeah, pretty much. They don't need to know anything other than we live together and we're conjugal. I think that's all they care about.
Yeah, well, things like that. Like, you're not in a very bad place when you break up, are you?
I may be, but I've kind of prepared for it as best I can if and when it happens. I just assume it happens and plan accordingly. And then if it doesn't happen, I mean, every day is sunshine then.
Yeah, well,
every day that I go back out there and the wife gives me a great kiss asking me how my podcast was, as opposed to I'm leaving and taking the dogs. It's a good day.
It's always better than killing the dog.
Yeah. Well,
the Terrence Pop.
Well, kind of like that. But you're right. Like, always go out for the worst. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Prepare for that. I got it
to a point where I can live with that.
And it's only getting better from there.
Yeah, that's the first thing. Like, guys who panic, like I didn't even really want to use the term MGTOW anymore, because after watching Donovan pretty much butcher MGTOW and Red Pill last week, I think that's really fascinating. Is that suddenly all of this stuff that we used to just say is all Red Pill, now that's suddenly MGTOW. But
you look like an Air Force fighter pilot blinking in Morse code while talking about how he's treated.
Yeah. Well,
the Iraqis are treating me well.
But here's the thing is like, and this is what I get from guys all the time, from the MGTOW side of things, is why would you get married? It's like, they give you the business analogy. Why would you get into a really bad business decision with a guy? Would you go into business if it were the same circumstances? And I won't enumerate them, but if there's the same circumstances as a marriage, you would tell that person to go F off, right? Yeah, you would. I got it. I completely understand. So with that as the baseline, how do you come together with a woman? How do you live a life together with a woman? How are you better together than you are apart? And I think that, like, when I talk to guys who are very adamantly against marriage, or very adamantly against even just like approaching a woman. I mean, there's remember MGTOW's order of degree here, but when I say, hey, look, I am in a marriage right now. I'm the primary in my marriage. I make the decisions. I'm the one she looks up to, whether that's a religious thing or that's a social thing or that's just her personally. That's the way that it's worked out. The first thing they say is, well, any moment she could just take the dogs and go off. I'm like, yeah, I know that.
Well,
that's something I have to. That's my lifestyle, and I know that. And guess what? Because I know that, I live my life differently. I have a different perspective on marriage in general, but I also have a different perspective on my own life and what I'm doing right now. And I can only live one way. I've chosen this as a lifestyle. This is how I choose to live. And I know what the risks are. Thank you very much. But this is where I'm at. And how I think that my relationship with my wife is a complementary one where I am the primary in that relationship. So how do you get to that? Well, I mean, like Tate was saying this yesterday. I wanted to also run this one by you. Tate was saying, you don't find a relationship, you build that relationship, you create that. Like Ryan, you're in a situation with your woman right now because she has accepted you as the primary. She wants to follow along. She wants to follow your lead, and she wouldn't be there if she doesn't have to be there. Particularly in this society, if anything, that says something about you, because this is the entire social order is stacked against men, and yet still she wants to. Women are incentivized,
but she wants me.
Yeah, women are incentivized to divorce, and they don't.
And that comes back to the point about we all have our own personal economies. Do you know what I mean? Like, just because the meta picture is a bit shitty, it doesn't matter. You can still be the king in your own kingdom. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like I'll put it this way too. When we were together, she was just a plate. It was her fighting to be a girlfriend. Like we had this, I said, yeah, we're on probation. We'll see what happens. I remember one day was after a cake stand at a friend's place that she was doing, and she was like bawling that she said she loved me, and I didn't say it back right away. So like she fought to make the relationship. It wasn't me begging her.
I love the Han Solo response to that. Like there are guys in the chat sometimes, like, she tells me she loves me. What should I say? I know.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, well, I
seen.
That's interesting because I had a similar situation with my now wife when she was my girlfriend. Is we started dating, and it was the first time in the 4 years that I'd been with the BPD girl that I was out and I was non-exclusive, and I was dating like an adult should date, right?
Yeah.
Not like I'm going to be your girl. I want you to be my girlfriend. Will you go steady with me, please? This adolescent social skill set. I'm actually out there and I'm dating multiple women at the same time, of which my wife was one of them. And then after a while, things got a little bit more intense and a little more involved. And I was still, she was seeing other people, I was seeing other people. And then at one point we just started seeing each other more and more. And she told me one night, she says, I don't like the idea of you being with other people. I want to be exclusive. And I'm like, and I was at that point, I'm like, well, she's the hottest one of the bunch. So.
Well, again,
sure, why not?
Again,
all right.
You let her handle the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, she came, and that was interesting because that was like one of the first times in a long time that had happened. Because even when my in my rock star 20 years, my 20s, that conversation never really came up because I was with another woman every other weekend. And that's just how I was living my life at that time. And then, of course, when I finally decided to get involved in a long-term relationship, she turned out to be BPD, and that like completely destroyed my life because of that. So here I am coming out of that, and it was that, I think maybe on a subconscious, because I certainly wasn't red pilled, but on a subconscious level, I think I picked up on that. And I'm like, okay, she wants me to drive her car. She wants me to be the man in the relationship. She's expecting me to be the guy who's the decision maker. She had a very alpha father. And so then
you were like, she's the hottest one out of all the girls.
Yes. And well, that was people ask me this, and Rich has asked me this before. She's like, how did you know you wanted to marry Mrs. Tomasi? And I said, well, I, for a very long time, like especially coming out of that BPD situation, I didn't want to get married. I didn't want a girlfriend. I'd finally discovered mental point of origin. I finally realized that when I start thinking about me and I start being more selfish, that's when girls came to me. That's when women started being interested in what it was I was doing. When I was focused on my mission and not on chicks, that's when women start to flock to you because you have something going on, and you're not, your whole life isn't dedicated to their happiness or their success or optimizing hypergamy for them. It's you're focusing on you, and they follow you instead of you follow them. And that was the dynamic that had shifted for me at that point. And then why did I marry my wife? Well, I didn't want to get married, but then when that came up and I said, okay, do I really want to be monogamous? Do I really want to get back into something like this? And I thought, well, can I be faithful to her? Because I know me, I've seen me do it. I've cheated on girlfriends before, and I've done so because either something wasn't right in a relationship or she just wasn't as hot as the other girl that wanted to get with me. So I looked at her in that, and this is gonna sound really superficial and shallow, but this is how I thought is, can I be faithful to this woman? And the answer was yes. She was hot. She was fun. It was great. We had great sex. And then after that, I was like, okay, what's her family like? How does her sister's kids interact with her? And I looked at that. I watched that. I started understanding their family, what it was all about. And I'm like, yeah, I could see that. I could see getting married. And then that's what led me to that decision.
Yeah, that's what you and I talked about as well. Like, if guys want to get in a relationship, look at her family, because you are not just putting one and one together. No. You're putting two families.
That's a really good point to make in this
just move across the country. I don't deal with the mother-in-law at all now.
Yeah, well, see, you don't have to, because you're in a customizable relationship, right? But that's another thing is when I don't think a lot of people realize. I understand why religion and society would not want premarital sex. I totally get that, particularly with respect to understanding that, the more partners that a woman has, the harder it is for her to form a healthy attachment. Those kinds of things make sense. I also understand, I'm not endorsing this, but I also understand why there was such a thing as prearranged marriages, because of exactly what you were just talking about there, Jack. It's like, if I was in another culture and I was planning to marry my daughter off, I don't want her to go with the schlub. I don't want to marry my family to some scumbags. I want my daughter to have the best. I want her to get with a good looking guy. I want her to have good looking babies. I want her, my son-in-law's family to be positive and have a good unification of two families. I want the best for my daughter. I would certainly want to do something like it if I were the one who was making that decision. I understand the logic behind that, but understand why now, and Dalrock has talked about this on dozens of different times, is that we have made romantic love the only kind of love, because we've switched over to a feminine primary way of thinking. In Western culture, it's all feminine primary. It's been feminine primary even prior to the sexual revolution. That's another essay. But when I see how we've gone from prearranged marriages, or we've gone from like combining families, or like uniting tribes, I guess would be a better way to put it, to the rise of the sexual revolution and unfettered hypergamy, and look where we're at now. How are we going to do family creation in the coming decade, when men don't want to get married, and we've got poly seems like a good idea, and we've got customized relationships, and like even for Ryan, Ryan, you don't want to deal with your wife's family or whatever.
Well, I like
how does that work out? So there's other aspects of forming a relationship with a woman that don't have anything to do with you getting laid or you having a marriage together. It's also, what are you going to do about kids? What are you going to do about your families? What are you going to do about, what about convictions? What about values? What about those kinds of things when you are coming together as two people? Like when I see these poly relationships where it's like two kind of beta schlubs with a five who's out nailing guys on the weekends, how does that work with their families, right? Like if you're the dad of that beta schlub who is in that relationship, like most likely that guy's probably beta too, but like imagine, like, how are you going to go forward? How are you going to create a healthy family with that situation, with your son or your daughter in that kind of arrangement? That's something that I don't think we're not asking those questions. We're just saying, well, what works for me getting off? Okay, that's important. That's very important. But there's other things that are attached to that as well.
Would they argue that? I mean, I don't know enormous, but would they sort of say, well, actually, it's better because it's we're a community and we all raise the kids together? Are they claiming that kind of thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, they might make that sort of
argument. Those are some things that we're going to have to answer, I would say, in the coming decade. And if we, I think we are, particularly in the red pill community, I think we're in a good position to at least be a force driver, to be a force multiplier in this. People say, well, Rolly, you sound like you're really against poly. I'm like, well, tell me why you think it's a good idea. Like, explain to me how it works and why you think it would be better for us. And how did you come to those? Yeah. And how did you come to those conclusions? Or if you're a tradcon and you say, we need to get back to, when women were women and men were men, okay, tell me how that works in a social order where marriage has become the worst decision a man can make.
I think practical steps for dudes are right. I reckon the first thing you need to do is you need to ignore the tradcon dudes and the purple pill dudes, and you need to ignore the poly people on the other side. Just put those out of your fucking reality, because the tradcon thing clearly is clearly extremely problematic. Let's say that, because otherwise there wouldn't be this community.
It's very generous of you, by the way.
Clearly there are problems with that, because we know about the divorce rate, we know about infidelity, and that doesn't even include the people who are still married, who are unhappy, and everything else. There are problems with that route, right? Mm-hmm. There are also clearly problems with certainly polygamous relationships where you're talking about a girl and different dudes. If you're Andrew Tate and you're in that kind of relationship, you're in that kind of setup, okay, great. But we're not really critiquing that, are we? We're critiquing where there's other dudes involved. I would not recommend standard to Tate. I would not recommend for any guy to go down that situation. Here's what you need to do, right? You need to, first off, you need to think, do I want to have kids or not? Right? Because that is the defining issue that everything else is going to come from. Because if you don't want to have kids, you don't have to worry about half of this crap. You don't have to worry about. You could just go and live in Bali and just have a great time. So there's that, and you need to think about that really carefully, because I keep seeing all these young dudes on purple pill dudes on Twitter, Zoomers on Twitter, go, oh my god, I just want to have I want to have this perfect family, and it's like, okay, fine. Well, if you really want that, great, that's absolutely fine, go for that. But just think about it, because it's not right for everybody. And there are some, and you might be a dude who actually it's not right for you, but you're scared because you think, I've got to do this because otherwise I'm not going to be happy. I'm going to be the lonely old man. All that kind of stuff. And that's nonsense. There are other ways that you can design your life. So firstly, decide on that. Then, if you do want to have kids, I would say, for myself, if I was looking at this seriously, I would say, okay, right. So firstly, I don't really want to get into a state marriage, because I think that's going to be problematic from the financial side. So I'm going to look at that, and then I'm going to look at, okay, and I think it was it on the Tate show? You guys would say, you go to look at geographical locations you can go to where fathers at least aren't treated with hostility. Mm-hmm. Look at where you can go where the odds are going to be stacked more in your favor than not. Mm-hmm. Just be pragmatic about it. Do you know what I mean? Don't just think, oh, well, okay, well, I want to be a father, so I'm just going to sit in California and I'm going to.
That's funny. That was one of the first things that Tate said. Is like, if it sucks where you're at, get out of there. Go, exactly. Leave that country. Go. So you have the ability to do that. If it's so bad where you're at, why are you still there?
Firstly, think about if you want family in the first place, if you want kids in the first place, because that's a key issue. And I read recently, there's a quite good book by a dude, Bachelor Blueprint, and I read his book, which I'll do a review of quite soon, called Bachelor. I think it's called Bachelor Blueprint. And he says right at the beginning of that, he says, every girl that I'm with, this is what I think. Am I going to have kids with this girl or am I not? Because that's what it comes down to. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're in a relationship with a girl who's 26, 27. The fundamental thing is, that relationship going to carry on or not? Well, it depends if you want to have kids. It's in the end, most women are going to want to have kids, and they want to get. They're going to want to get into. They want to get back.
Well, that's part of the they want to say that their biological clock is ticking, and so I think there's a maternity instinct in men.
Yeah. So first off, you've got to decide. Yeah. So first off, decide that for yourself, and then if you do, and if that's really honestly what you want to do, and it's not just societal programming, it's not just your mum telling you it's a good thing to do and everything else. If that's genuinely what you want to do, then just do some research into it and look at, okay, where realistically could I do this, where I can afford to do it, where maybe I'm not going to have terrible economic consequences if it all goes wrong, where I'm going to still get access to the kids if it goes wrong, and just really look into those things, and then just position your life so that you have the best possible chance for this to work well than not. That would be my 2 cents on it.
Right. Yeah. All right, guys, we are at the hour and 13 minutes mark. Ryan, did you see that video of George Bruno he posted in an outdoor shower? And he dropped the soap and makes fun of himself picking it up.
That sounds like that sounds like a niche.
I don't know if that is that true. I don't think that's true.
That sounds like a niche video that I'm not particularly inclined to.
Yeah. So, anyways, by the way,
you're muted, Ryan.
You're muted, Ryan. Come back up. There you go.
I know I did that video dunking on Bruno, but it's not because
burrito
I want
time,
and want to laugh.
It's over. Yeah, I didn't want. Yeah,
I do it because there's some value for the other people in seeing why he's wrong and what's better to do. If he wants to act like a clown to get me to pay attention, that's on him.
That's fine. I got a thing sent to me about.
Is he trying to make tactical soap so poisonous a brand that I'll never sell one again?
There's a new thing called Red Pill America. Did you guys see this?
What?
They're selling merchandise now, and they're selling a beanie that says Red Pilled America on it.
Are you gonna get it?
That seems awful Rolo-like.
Yeah, it does. But I would if I didn't think that by I would if I. It's funny. My hair's almost time. It's almost time for the unveiling.
Is it going to be released?
Probably in the new year. I'm thinking probably January. I want to give it at least another couple more months. It's fine. I finally got it to shoulder length, so it's been about a year since I cut it.
You're gonna walk out one podcast with the Slayer shirt and an Ibanez guitar, and then the hair comes
out. I only do that with Jack. So.
Not to worry, Rolo. It's gonna grow back. You're not going to be the only one in the manosphere with long hair. It's going to grow back.
I would say I would buy one.
We should grow our hair too.
I would buy one of those beanies.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. Hey, Jack. I think there's a gap in the Twitter market now.
That needs to be filled.
Full on Ajax.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Rolo. Who's gonna tell you to go fuck yourself?
I know. Here's the thing is, and now we can sort of. Okay, so we're at the end of the show here, so I'm just gonna say, if you saw my show on Wednesday, I did a Q&A, and I talked about that for a bit, and of course, the 21 Cons decided that it was because I in some way outed him or I in some way reported. I had nothing to do with that whatsoever, 100%. And of course, that's the way they wanted to. They wanted to anything. If Trump gets impeached, it'll be my fault, right? There'll be some way that they'll link it back. They'll link it back to me, right? But no, I was just gonna say is there's a lesson to be learned in that too. And it's like, yeah, I have locked horns with AJ. He's told me to F off several times, whatever. It used to be so good, AJ. But here's the thing is like, I don't think he should have been banned. I don't for what he had done, but he was in the wrong place at the wrong time and just casually made the wrong tweet on a day when the Project Veritas video came out, when they were sort of exposing, what's her name? Roback, the ABC,
the Epstein stuff.
On the Epstein stuff, and Google and Twitter and YouTube went on a sweep, and he got caught up in that sweep. And that was him getting I think he's probably been suspended on a couple of other occasions as well, but he got caught up in that sweep. And I told Tate this yesterday. I said, there's no way he should have been picked up for that. And
but he knew that was there. That's the thing. Why do you have to tell people?
That's not me being magnanimous. That's me just saying this is really what's going on. And so the lesson learned here is that in our community, whatever you want to call it, manosphere, red pill, in our community, we need to be on top of our game. We need to know that when shit like that happens, that we have to be very much more careful. And we're not allowed to talk about he had something about like pedophilia. Like I think there was Pat Campbell just reposted the story, but he was commenting on a story about how some research had said that pedophiles can't help themselves and nothing we can do can really change that. And then
and what do people do? They signal how great they are by giving death threats out.
And Alexander said something to the effect that, well, castration can. And that's all he said. And that was enough to get him like perma-banned because of that. So the bigger question in here is like, is Twitter defending pedophiles now? And the answer is yes, they are.
Well,
and so if this is your platform,
they're defending the Democratic Party. Yeah, and the Democratic Party is like really edgy about this Epstein thing.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of, that's incidental.
Picked it up
my
at the
question
wrong
is,
time.
The whole point of Red Pill, like Law 38, think what you want, but act like the others. From a business standpoint, and Twitter is the majority of his top of the funnel stuff. Why are you in group signaling to conservatives that pedophiles are bad? Because clearly there's a large group of people on his Twitter following who didn't know that.
The sky is blue.
Well,
yeah, the sky is blue, and this gets dangerously close to something that is a hot button topic. It doesn't help his sales funnel, and it's now costing him money. That was just a bad business decision, which seems to be a theme from the Central Florida crew. So I can't fault him for that in isolation.
All right, here's and speaking of current themes, RT, what do you think?
It sounds like no-fap.
What do you think about semen retention? YouTube channels are popping up and they criticize Red Pill, claiming it raises masculinity. I have written a post called the Pheromonal Beta, which I talked about this. I actually discussed this with Hotep Jesus when I interviewed him a few months ago, I think back in October. And I understand it in principle. I don't know if the biology actually works.
Is this the one where Jesus was talking about how you don't nut, you just finish your sex? Hey, thanks.
Yeah, you don't nut. Yeah, so you retain your chi or your vital essence.
Oh, see, I'll vouch for that, but not for that crappy reason. Yeah. I vouch for it because girls get really fucking mad.
In case you didn't know, you guys in the UK, we are in No Nut November. Yes. And if you decide that you want to jerk off in the month of November, then you have to change your avatar on Twitter or whatever your social media is to the dirty coomer, which is like, of course, something that's off of 4chan, and it's like this, guy with, looks like a boomer, but like a guy who just got off kind of thing.
Why not why not instead of that do Mo Nut November, where you try to nut as much as you possibly can throughout the month of November and just see what happens with that?
Because you can't automatically do that by being a failure.
Yeah. Well, here's why this is a thing, particularly, and I don't want to say this is a MGTOW thing, but it's certainly in that end of the spectrum. Is that if you are Red Pill, if you're trying to find ways to get laid more, if you're doing interviews with Andrew Tate, right, and how to go from being sexless to having sex, then suddenly you're preaching or you're in some way trying to get guys to give up their vital essence by having sex, right? So I like when there's actually an evolutionary perspective of this that I talk about in that post, the Pheromonal Beta. There are certain, like, here's the idea that have any of you guys ever seen that movie, Something About Mary?
Yeah.
Where the guy
jerk off before the date thing?
Jerk off before the date because it relaxes you and you're not thinking about sex. And so you're not all over her, and you're more in your rational mind, I guess, than your irrational mind or your emotion, whatever.
Why don't they just smoke weed if this is what they're going with this?
Right. And so this is kind of the principle here, is that if there's one side that says if you jerk off, you're better off with women because you won't be so desperate or you won't manifest desperation. The other side of this is that you'll be so relaxed and so you're full of oxytocin or whatever because you just got off, that women will pick up on the idea that you're not really into them, that you're not really trying to, find some way to be witty or some way to, if they're attracted to you, of course. But so I argue this is that I think that there's something to the effect of like Freud always said that all energy is sexual. So how guys take that sexual frustration and channel it into other aspects of their life. How do they become a better artist? How do they build a bridge? How do they do this? How do they, because they have this sexual frustration, they take that energy, that psychic energy, and they apply it to something else. That's the whole
Tesla theory.
The whole thing is, yeah, right. It's.
Do you ever notice that not a single one of those guys accomplishes shit in November? I don't see anybody in November with his new invention on his Avi.
They're probably
they haven't nutted, and that counts for something.
They're probably knitting their new waifu pillows for December.
That's funny you say that, because that was my first joke. Was like, if you have a sex doll and you get off with the sex doll in November, does that make you a dirty coomer? I don't know, man. Well, she's my wife. Well, I guess you're having sex with your wife. Then
it's like Jehovah's Witnesses deciding never to do blood transfusions, or no-fap guys, or the sex doll checking out guys. It's always making a virtue out of the fact that you can't get things done. Yeah. We're just going without just for the sake of it, like a cold shower and knuckle push-ups.
And then we're going to incorporate Brazilian power crystals and chi and all of this other. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're gonna go to our e-meter. We're gonna get our e-meter read for Scientology. That kind of stuff gets paired up with that, and so it's like it's interesting to see the factionalization within the manosphere, but also like even from outside the manosphere, where like this, how is this a good idea? Like, how does this become popularized? Even Paul Joseph Watson did a video on No Nut November. And then, of course, he related it, and tactfully so, related it to the rise of pornography and why porno is bad for guys and why it changes your mind about sex and all this. Okay, I get it, right? But is that again, cause or effect? Well, men want unlimited access to unlimited sexuality as a part of our, biological imperatives. So what does porn, how does porn service that? Well, it gives guys who wouldn't normally have access that kind of access. And so therefore, maybe there's something to that. Maybe they shouldn't jerk off. Maybe they shouldn't watch porn. Maybe they'll get something done. Okay, if that's the logic, show me what you're getting done. Yeah. Show me, did you cure cancer this month? Did you build something this month? Did you take all that energy and direct it to something productive?
But do you think that what's his name again? Elon Musk hasn't nutted during his entire time developing Tesla or SpaceX? Like, are these guys trying to tell me this?
Well, I think that there's something to be said. Like Paul Joseph Watson came up with, and I really need to read this research, but he put up some numbers about how primates, when they're in the wild, rarely ever jerk off. Like male monkeys rarely ever jerk themselves off. But
yeah, when do you ever jerk off camping? I don't.
But when they're in captivity, that's when they tend to jerk off a whole lot more. And so he's trying to make this comparison that like the reason why the reason why we're so obsessed with pornography is because we are basically humans in captivity and we can't get out of our horrible state of life. Well, if that's the case, if you believe that, guess what? You should be red pill. You should be listening to this kind of stuff because this is what's helping lift guys out of that bullshit. So
dude,
don't come at me with No Nut November.
Yeah, Rolo, you might know this. This is exactly what I'm saying. It's that pigeon experiment where the pigeons would hit a button and a food pellet would come out, but it was inconsistent, so they never knew when it was coming out. Yep. Or no, it wasn't that they hit the button. It's just that it came out in random times.
Yeah, very.
And the birds didn't know rhyme or reason to it, so they developed all these weird, funky dances that they thought made the pellet come out. And this is exactly what we're doing here, because we're getting this intermittent reward system. Mm-hmm. People are developing these elaborate rituals that think it's going to make a difference. That's the crystals. That's the No Nut November. That's all of it. Mm-hmm. It's just because people have no idea how they're achieving anything in their life. They're developing these weird, and they always have to be weird, something that's unfalsifiable, because otherwise you would know that has nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. If every time you bought condoms off of Amazon, you got laid, then you keep doing that. But if you don't know when it's going to happen next, yeah, of course you're going to have No Nut November and stuff, because you need your little. I just don't get guys. They left the church, but then they're just looking for another god, and they pick the stupidest one ever in No Nut November.
It's tribal.
Maybe instead of trying No Nut November, try to fix No Nut 2019, 2018, 17, 16, 15, 14, 12, 11, 10. Need I go on?
Yeah. Fix just that. Try not telling people that you haven't jerked off in a month as like some point of pride.
Well, what's funny is
with your beliefs.
And then of course you get the feminist side, femstream media thinks that they feel threatened by it because, oh my gosh, these guys aren't going to jerk off, so they're actually going to go out on the streets and rape someone because they're going to channel that sexual frustration into that they were channeling into porn. Now they're going to go out and they're going to go on the be rapists on.
So now are they?
Yeah, if you want to see more, see my premium snap.
Or they take Troy too literally and they'll think they'll rape pigeons.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. And then what happens is that kind of faux outrage from feminists feeds back into that mindset. See, they want us jerking off. There's proof right there. They want us enslaved. They want us, that this is where they want us. They can't tell us what to do. We're not going to touch our dicks if we don't want to.
Melt steel beams.
what a ridiculous public sort of argument to be having. really.
Yeah,
but it's a bit like actually what Ben Shapiro was saying in that speech he did. I mean, and I know this is slightly different context, but the far left and the far right need each other. They feed off each other. Do you know what I mean? And in this case, you've got the sort of, I don't know, the feminists and the, whatever the other side. They're sort of they need each other to keep the momentum of the whole thing going. And it's all bullshit, really.
It's like real MGTOW saying, well, women actually want us. They don't want us to be MGTOW. They don't want us to go their own way. They're because we're doing what we want to do, they really want a part of this.
Meanwhile, they don't give two shits.
No, they don't.
Rolo, can I just say that the echo really moves up your cult leader status?
Yeah.
It really suits you.
It's funny, is I have a digital delay pedal down on my guitar rig that I was thinking about putting into this into the mic line here, so I could do nice. like the announcer at the baseball stadium kind of thing.
Oh, nice. I thought you were gonna put a fuzz box on it. But
I can do that too. I could probably, I've got a pedal board down there that I could probably put a delay and like a flanger on that would make me sound like the high priest of the manosphere that everybody fears that I am.
We still need to get you that hat.
Yeah, I know. I need the big kind of like what is it, the ghost cathedral or the ghost pope hat. That would be awesome. God, if I did
and
that,
a golf cart to ride around town.
Lose their fucking minds. I know. That'd be funny. All right, guys. So we're coming up on the end of the show here. Troy, give your plugs. Go for it.
Follow me on Twitter at Renegade Playboy, and I basically plug everything on there. But I've got a daily email, so Monday to Friday, free article from me. So you can go to my Twitter and you'll see the link. You can sign up for that. And also, I've got a set of 10 books about dating, games, sexual marketplace, all that good stuff, called Renegade Dating Blueprint. It's just $39 at the moment, full value $250. The link is on my Twitter, so get on board with that as well.
Cool. Jack.
YouTube channel, you'll really help me out. I'm trying to get to 1,000 before the end of the year. I'm almost there. Link is in the chat. And you can follow me on Twitter as well, where I shoot the shit with all these guys. And that's about it for now.
There you go. Ryan, what are you doing?
Oh, my God. I'm simplifying. I'm focusing on the Patreon guys and on the YouTube channel. I've been kind of walking back the consult from slowly pricing them, so I get less and less clients and calls over the months. So if you want to find me, easiest thing, ryanstone.com for the gist of it. YouTube/C/Ryan Stone for the videos, and patreon.com/join_Ryan_Stone.
You know what I'm going to
3 parts there.
Okay. You know what I'm going to do is next time I host Rule Zero, I'm going to the last half hour, I'm going to open the door here and get the dogs in here so we can have a dog party.
Oh yeah. Awesome.
I agree with this.
Okay. Tomorrow I am on my show with Pat Campbell, Rational Male, Red Pill 101. And I don't know what we probably will be picking up on what we were talking about on Friday with respect to age differences with men and women. I that's what I would like to talk about. We might pick up on the stuff that I talked about with him on his show. That will be tomorrow at 4:30 Eastern on this channel that you are watching right now, that you should absolutely 100% subscribe to as I'm saying this. Hit the like button if you have not hit the like button. Make sure to buy an e-meter from Jack Napier. And I will also have I'm working on an interview with Joshua Flake right now. I like this guy. I think he's a cool dude. He has an interesting story. I did back on about 2 weeks ago. I did a case study on this guy, Pat from Tech Lead, because everybody said you need to do a case study on him because he had just got sort of divorce raped and his wife took his kid back to Japan, and people wanted me to analyze that. And so I did. And everybody, that was a really hot episode for me. And so people were saying, you need to go and check out this kid, Josh Flake. He has a very similar story. Go check him out. And I was like, all right. I don't really want to dunk on guys just because they're, in a bad situation. But I listened to his video on his divorce story. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to do a case video. I would rather talk to him direct, because I think the guy deserves at least to, if I'm going to talk to him about this. He's read all 3 of my books. People were referring him to me. And so I'm going to see if I can get him on and talk to him about that situation, because I think a lot of people can learn from that. And so I think I'm going to try. I don't know when that's going to be. I would say it's going to be between tomorrow and Wednesday. If I can get him on Wednesday, I will. So that is coming up. I think that's going to be a really educational show. That will be Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern on this channel. Once again, on my channel. That's me personally. And I don't know. I'll probably be on with you guys again next week at some point. So
Jack, I see you've got the weights set up in your room. Why didn't you do some lifting during the show?
Yeah, man. Yeah, you could be the fitness guru. You could have got
some sets in while we were talking. Next time.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you next week.